Ladies and gentlemen, if we could please come to order. Welcome to the annual 2026 town meeting. If everybody can go ahead and find your seats. As usual with town meeting members in the lower part of the auditorium, you can sit in the top if you prefer, but reserved for town meeting members in the lower part of the auditorium. Go ahead and note your nearest emergency exits as you find your seat. So nice to see all of you again. Having been advised by the town clerk, Susan Galvin, that a majority of town meeting members are present, I hereby declare that a quorum is present for the transaction of business, and the meeting is now open. The meeting will now come to order. I like doing that. I have been advised that pursuant to the law, the warrant was returned upon the town clerk on or before the 29th day of April 2026 by Constable William Neville. For those of you that are newly elected and don't know me, my name is Elizabeth Dillon and I'm your town moderator. And again, as I mentioned before, welcome to our annual town meeting. It's really such an honor and pleasure to be with you this evening. Last year, about exactly a year ago, was my first town meeting, so now I'm old hat, not first town meeting, but as the moderator, so now I'm old hat. And I'm really glad to see so many new members among you, as well as many long-standing town meeting members and other public servants. As you probably know, town meeting originated in the early 1600s and is really one of the oldest, if not the oldest, surviving form of direct democracy in the United States and the Western world. It relies upon volunteers like you and me to ensure its continued and ongoing success. And so I'm really thankful for your participation in town meeting this evening and for taking time away from your families, jobs, and your other responsibilities. As set forth in section 9.1 of Town Meeting Time, volume 4, something that maybe only I and Brian Walsh and other people have read, it's my goal to promote a full, fair, and orderly debate by the assembly of the issues before town meeting while maintaining I'm quoting here, a procedural regularity, civility, and efficiency in the completion of the meeting's business, all in an environment in which reasonable minds may and often do differ, passions may be roused, and procedural decisions must be made in real time. That's the end of my quote. Accordingly, I ask that each of you continue to commit yourselves to acting as we do in a professional and civil manner with the decorum customarily expected of our positions as elected officials in the town, whether town meeting member or otherwise. And of course, should you encounter any issues, please feel free to alert me and I'm happy to assist, as are, I'm sure, the town administrator, the town clerk, etc. So to encourage participation both by new town meeting members as well as longstanding members, you may remember if you've been here before that I will call upon individuals by name only after they have introduced themselves once to town meeting, and then I will refer to you by name after that. In the event that you require an accommodation and have not yet done so, as set forth in the warrant, please alert myself and Sue Galvin, the town clerk, and we'll be happy to try to assist you. If there are other questions that arise or issues that you would like addressed, do not hesitate to contact me before, after the meeting, during a break, or via my email address, which is edillon@miltonma.gov, and I will endeavor to timely answer your questions or refer you to the correct individual to do so. And once again, I really look forward to working cooperatively with you during our town meeting this year. So, in keeping with our tradition, we'll start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Will those of you that are able, please rise, stand, and join with me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you're able, please remain standing because we have our wonderful singers from the Milton High School Music Department who will lead us in the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's Beautiful. Thank you so much. Now, I will kindly ask the town clerk, Susan Galvin, to swear in the members of town meeting. If all the town meeting members can please stand. It's like stand up, sit down, stand up.
Good evening. If everybody could raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear to faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all duties incumbent upon you as a town meeting member, to bear true faith and allegiance to, and to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the bylaws of the town of Milton, and to fairly and equitably execute the laws thereof within the extent of your authority and jurisdiction, so help you God? Thank you.
I just want to go ahead and recognize all of the town meeting members who were just recently elected, all of the town meeting members who were newly elected, re-elected, all of our wonderful town elected officials, boards and committee members who were re-elected and newly elected. If we can just give all of those people a round of applause. Thank you so much, all of you, and just really want to acknowledge you for your service. Now, I'd like to acknowledge a couple of people who we've lost in the past year. First, I want to acknowledge, and this is at the request of the select board as well, but I want to acknowledge State Police Trooper, Kevin Trainer. Officer Trainer was only 30 years old, and he was just completed 3 years on the force. And he completed his shift at 2 o'clock this morning when he answered a call that resulted in a head-on crash with a wrong-way driver, resulting in his passing. So, may we have a moment of silence, and may Officer Trainer rest in peace. Thank you. And now I'd like to recognize the loss of former town meeting member Janet Irwin from Precinct 9. Janet Irwin served town meeting for 13 years, from 2011 to 2024. May we also have a moment of silence for Janet, and may she rest in peace. Thank you. And now, I'd like to thank town meeting members with longstanding service to the town. And I'd like you to ask if you could kindly, I know people like to cheer, but if you could kindly hold your applause until the end. So with 10 years of service to town meeting, we have Kevin Hardy, Precinct 1, Nora Harrington, Precinct 10, Zachary Lazar, Precinct 2, Michael Musto, Precinct 2, James Potter, Precinct 4 4A, Robert Reitz, Precinct 9, and Denny Swenson, Precinct 9. Thank you for your service for the past 10 years. With 15 years of service, we have Thomas Callahan, Precinct 4 4A, Michael Chinman, Precinct 2, Cheryl Tagayas, Precinct 9, and Leroy Walker, Precinct 10. Thank you for your 15 years of service to town meeting. With 20 years of service, we have Roxanne Musto, Precinct 5, Elizabeth O'Connor, Precinct 9, Richard Shea, Precinct 6, and Bill White, Precinct 6 as well. Thank you for your 20 years of service. With 25 years of service to town meeting, we have Arthur Doyle, Precinct 7, Kathy Fagan, Precinct 2, and Linda Lee Sheridan, Precinct 9. Thank you. With 30 years, we have Deb Felton, Precinct 2, and 45 years, Judy White Orlando, Precinct 9. No, just a regular amount of cheering. And with 50 years of service, we have Kevin C. Donahue, Precinct 1, and Bob Sweeney, Precinct 9. It's wonderful. Thank you all. And now, I would really like to especially acknowledge our 65 years of service to town meeting from Precinct 4, 4A, Marita Manning Croning. 65 years of service. And thank you. And that's not all. I'd like to recognize Representative Richard Wells and Senator Bill Driscoll, who've prepared a few words about our own Marita Manning Cronin.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm going to hand this off to Rep. Wells in a second, but I don't even have to ask. I know what the secret is. This morning, I started my day at the top of Great Blue Hill at the Blue Hills Observatory, and on the way up, I witnessed Margarita hiking up Big Blue bright and early. So I know that's the secret to the longevity, and thank you for your service to town meeting.
Thank you, Senator. I'm very honored tonight to stand here and just have one thing to say. I'm Richard Wells, and I'm very honored to be the state representative for the 7th Norfolk District. Good evening. Mr. Chair, congratulations, by the way. He's not even listening to me. Forgot me already. 1 week, and he already forgot who I am. Marita would like to ask you to come forward. You know, 65 years ago, town meeting was held in a brick building on Canton Avenue. It was there that each year, town meeting members gathered to debate the warrants and the budget for the upcoming calendar year. Please come right here. And most people in this room don't even remember that building. I was only a small child. It was a beautiful building. You may have read stories about it that, as Marita will know, why did they tear it down and build the building we have today? We should have kept it. But town meeting was a much different thing. The 1909 school building was still the high school. Henry's Ice Cream was still one of the biggest, or the biggest, commercial business in town. 3 fire stations, Atherton Street, Central Headquarters in East Milton. All the old buildings that 2 of them, one's been replaced and one has been. This building right here that we sit in was not even a dream. Late at town meeting, after that building was destroyed and the new town hall was built, it was called the town office building, if I'm correct. Town meeting was moved to the Pierce Middle School, and it was held on Saturdays. And some of you who were in that 50-year category remember that long sessions. My former select board colleague, Katie Conlon, used to talk about going to town meeting on Saturdays with her father. Through all of this, Marita was there. Before the word override, or Proposition 2.5 were even thought of, she was there 65 years. The second part that you don't know is, in those 65 years, she has 100% attendance. How many of us remember as a child, or even your own children today, that morning, that rainy morning, that cold morning, I don't want to go to school, or I don't want to go to this, or I don't want to go to town meeting because it's going to go to 10:35 tonight, and I want to be home to watch a certain show that I love. Marita has persevered through all of that. 100% attendance. And I believe, historically, the only other person to have served for 65 years is the senator and our former colleague, Representative M. Joseph Manning, Marita's cousin. Two people, same family. That says quite a bit about love of your committee, of your community. So tonight, we are offering to you, not from us, we brought this to the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Secretary Galvin, to tell him about this. And tonight, we offer to you, on behalf of his office, with great pride and appreciation, to hereby congratulate Marita Manning Cronin in recognition of 65 years of perfect attendance and service as a Milton Town Meeting member. We also extend our most sincere wishes for the future good fortune, continued success in all of your endeavors, given this 6th day of May, 2026 at the State House, Massachusetts. William Francis Galvin, Secretary of the Commonwealth. You want that? Yes. You said no, I said yes.
So I just,
I think I am a one.
I thank the people of Precinct 4, my friends and neighbors who have supported me all these years. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Dave.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Now, while he's standing there, Senator Driscoll has asked to address town meeting to provide a legislative update. Senator Driscoll, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, town meeting members. Thank you, Marita, for all your service to us and to all of you. I want to offer some updates from Beacon Hill, but first I want to say congratulations to our new members of the Select Board, our new members here at town meeting, and to the various boards. Thank you for volunteering for your town. Thank you to all the staff members as well that support the work of this body. Of course, our warrant committee. God bless you. Thank you for everything that you do throughout the year to make this night possible and the nights ahead of us. I want to thank the town clerk and your staff as well for your service to the town. As was mentioned earlier, I know with some historians in the room, the moderator mentioned that town meeting as a body predates our democracy in our country, and you are an extension of that democracy, and your service here is appreciated and so vital to our community. First and foremost, like I've shared in the past, I want to reiterate my policy, which is that anything passed here is a home rule petition. When it's in front of me in the state senate, whether that's in a committee or on the floor for a vote, I will work to move that forward. I respect the work of this body greatly, and will support the town administrator, his team, the select board, any home rules that come out of this room. I'd like to provide an update for you tonight on some matters that we've had before us in the state legislature and a couple that are coming down pretty soon. Of course, you can always follow along with updates. I have a website for my office. It's BillDriscollJr.com. And most of what I'll detail tonight is in close collaboration with Representative Wells, Representative Brandy Fluker Oakley, and of course, federal delegation members, including Congressman Lynch, who you'll hear from tonight as well. We continue to work on issues that affect Milton, the Blue Hills, and beyond, and it's a little bit beyond the borders. It's in Braintree, so I had the fortune and honor to represent Braintree as well as Milton with Congressman Lynch, and we're working on supporting a remote terminal for Logan and Braintree, so the future flying experience could be quite different. You might be someday able to make an appointment and go over to the park and ride in Braintree, get fully checked in, and then bust into Logan behind the security line. And so we're supporting their efforts of Massport and Braintree to make that a reality for our region around here. I'd like to begin with just an update on school funding. This is an issue that I hear directly from many of you on, certainly the communities in the district and around the Commonwealth. In 2019, we passed the Student Opportunity Act, and our goal was to direct greater investment into our public school systems to ensure that all students receive both high quality and needs-based education regardless of their zip code. However, while that was a generational investment at the time in 2019 pre-pandemic, in recent years, rising inflation, increased fixed costs have hindered some of those original intentions of the SOA. The SOA will be fully implemented this year and fully funded in its final year. My colleagues and I in the Senate, and then signed it into law with the support of the House and the governor, there was a directed DESE to put up a commission together. I know some of you testified at this. I testified at one of the 10 listening sessions that happened around the state. I can say, I think pretty confidently, I don't think there was a single piece of positive testimony in terms of anyone getting up and saying that Chapter 70 or school funding formulas were working for their district. So the message was loud and clear. And I certainly, in my testimony to them, invited the commission, the task force, to take a big swing. They are due to deliver a report to the legislature in June with recommendations on how quality education can be delivered across the Commonwealth and the things that we need to do in the near term and the long term to increase school funding or make it work better for districts. As a legislator, I've represented communities like Milton, where people are moving into the town because of the schools, and some communities that people are moving out of the town because of the school system. And all those conversations and advocacy across budgets and through committee hearings, what I've heard time and time again is that the formula is not working. Before us and for consideration, we have a few things that I've co-sponsored and testified on, not only at that task force hearing, but in the legislature. We're looking at ways to, how can we adjust for inflation and modernize the formula so that the dollar value in 2019 could be compared to pre-pandemic and post-pandemic dollars, and way to combat some of those rapid increases year to year. And so I've testified on S388, S385, and S440, an act relative to Chapter 70 inflation relief. We also, this Senate budget season is underway. We released a budget yesterday, and there is some commission in there, if passed, would look at the foundation budget formula in the future as well. In addition to school funding needs and considerations, yesterday the Senate released their budget. It includes a historic number for unrestricted government aid, so more than $50 million additional over last year going out into the Commonwealth. And so Milton will see a percentage increase, several $100,000 this next year from that fund. Also in there is a provision to, similarly, like we're doing with school funding, look at how to normalize, level set unrestricted government aid in the future. There really isn't a formula that can be pointed to with any sense in terms of why one community is getting more than another outside of different patchwork changes that have happened over the years. So again, we're reviewing that. We put in a provision to review that and hopefully come back with more flexible spending for local leaders in terms of how you are spending that money. Over the past year, we've secured some funding of note. And again, I invite you to go to my website to look at everything, but call out a few things. I know that the Tucker Elementary School team there is putting together some fundraising for the outdoor play space and the playground. So along with my colleagues in the House, Rep. Wells and Rep. Fluker, so far we've secured $150,000 toward that project as part of the Fair Share Supplemental. Yeah, it's a big one. Last year in the Fair Share budget, and the Fair Share is the money, this was a ballot question that passed in recent years that puts a surtax on income over $1 million, and it directed at transportation or education projects in particular. $75,000 for Milton traffic and pedestrian safety improvements, particularly at Adams Street and Wharf Street. So this is going into Lower Mills. If you've tried to get out of that intersection recently, you know that it's harrowing. And so we are looking at how to make improvements there in the future as well. You may have noticed if you've been in that neighborhood, finally the first project is underway as part of the Mattapan trolley line renovation project. So there is a new sloped walkway going into the parking lot at the Easy Storage building. And this is the new entrance, or will be the new entrance between now and sometime in August when it's completed for the Milton stop on the trolley line. So this is the first project of hundreds of million dollars that are going to go into renovation of the Mattapan trolley line that connects Milton, Dorchester, in Boston. So I'm glad to see this long stalled project is finally moving forward after years of pushing the T to move forward. I think one of the biggest things as it relates to the trolley line as well that I want to point out is, as I know some of you are aware, over the years, any community that is engaged, has MBTA service, receives a local area assessment, it's called. So this is money that is assessed to each town that has MBTA service that pays into the operating fund to the T. The formula has been around since 1918. It's another one of these things that's been a patchwork approach since then. And to give you a little bit of context, if you're not familiar, our assessment from last year was $2.1 million. If you put that beside Quincy's, and you think about the service that we have in Milton, we have proximal access to commuter rail, but not within our borders. We have bus service and we have trolley service. $2.1 million is the assessment that we pay. In Quincy, you have access to ferry, commuter rail, 4 red line stations, bus service. They're at $2.4 million. So I passed in the budget, in a supplemental budget last year, an amendment that was adopted and is now underway with the T Advisory Board, and they're due to report back to us by the end of the year, again, how to modernize the formula for local area assessments. This is really important. We're not alone in this, which is good. Places like Belmont and Arlington are actually, it turns out, paying for service that went away in the 1970s. New Bedford, again, not to pit one community against another, but just to give you an example of this has been a long time coming. New Bedford just received the extension of the commuter rail, which is great, more than $1 billion investment, their local area assessment. So it's zero because we haven't opened up the books on this issue in too long. And so we're just trying to make sure it's fair and equitable across the board. And so we're eager to receive that report from the T and from the advisory board and to make changes to that in the future. This week, we will take up the PROTECT Act. So the House passed the PROTECT Act, and I know Representative Walz was integral in terms of some of the debate that was happening on this issue. He gave his first speech on the floor of the House of Representatives on this act. This relates to a major legislative package around protecting the rights of Massachusetts residents, particularly immigrants, and young children victims of crimes. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of this bill. The Senate version, which builds off the work of Governor Healy and the House, is a product of countless conversations with immigrants' rights advocates, government officials, law enforcement stakeholders, residents of the Commonwealth, and our colleagues in government. Part of what this will do when passed, and ultimately will work out the differences between the House and the Senate versions, but ensure that sensitive locations remain places of trust where all residents have the safety they deserve, prohibit state and local law enforcement from engaging in civil immigration enforcement, ban government entities from entering into new 287G agreements with the federal government. So this is with ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, for example. Protect residents from direct actions by the federal law enforcement that violate individual protections under the United States Constitution, and prohibit local and state law enforcement from unnecessarily questioning a person about their immigration status or citizenship status during a stop because of their citizenship or immigration status. So these are things that we've heard from many of you. I know that I had many phone calls when things started to, to use the phrase flare up in this regard over the last several months in terms of ICE and Customs and Border Patrol protections. And I can't say enough about Congressman Lynch and him picking up the phone and talking through some of these issues with me. I appreciate that, Congressman, because I know it's a tough issue for a lot of people. It's an emotional issue. It's something we have to get right, though, and so we're focused on that. We're actually going to take that up in debate tomorrow in the Senate. So again, please reach out if I can ever be of assistance, if my office can ever be of assistance. It's an honor to serve you as your senator up on Beacon Hill, and I look forward to supporting the work of this body and any home rule petitions that you send our way. So thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, the members.
Thank you, Senator Driscoll. And as Senator Driscoll mentioned, of course, Congressman Lynch is here as well. And Congressman Lynch has also asked to address town meeting and provide a legislative update. Congressman Lynch, thank you so much. You're recognized.
Madam Moderator, thank you very much for your courtesy. I know you have much work to do based on what's in the warrant, so I will try to be brief. First of all, I want to thank Town Manager Nick Milano and the members of the Board of Selectmen. We have a funding mechanism in Washington, D.C. within the CARES Act and within the American Rescue Plan Act, where discretionary money comes out to cities and towns. And because of the good work done by Nick and also at the direction of the Board of Selectmen, we were able to obtain $5.2 million in discretionary funding for the town of Milton. That included, like I say, it was all discretionary money, but the projects included were water main improvements, fire department radio upgrades, both the library and town hall HVAC systems, school nursing support, affordable housing kitchen renovations, a police mental health clinician, and the reconstruction of Giles Field, which benefits the entire community. So in order to qualify for all of that, we had to have full cooperation and a lot of information. We had to jump through a lot of hoops to get that funding. So I give great credit to Nick and also to the Board of Selectmen in helping us do that. Thank you. As you know, there's a lot going on in Washington, and in the interest of time, I just have to hit on a few things. The Iran war, as you may know, there's been very little cooperation and communication between the administration and Congress. And not just the Democratic side, but Democrat and Republican. We're just not having a lot of communication from the White House. I serve on I serve on a committee on military and foreign affairs. I usually get an update on things, what is happening with the military and deployments, things of that nature, well before my colleagues do. On March 6th at 2 a.m., while the military actions were commencing against Iran, that's when I got my first notification, and most of Congress got the first notification that our sons and daughters in uniform were engaged in combat operations. Since then, we've had two briefings from the White House, from the different cabinet secretaries, Secretary of War Hegseth, Rubio, Dan Kane, who runs he's the head of the Joint Chiefs. But even at that briefing, my colleagues, many of my colleagues, both Democrat and Republicans, walked out of that briefing because so many of the answers to our questions were in the nature of, we'll get back to you on that. And these were basic questions about the circumstances, the mission, the goal, the request for funding, the duration of our engagement in Iran. So that problem persists. I'm a lead sponsor of a War Powers resolution to actually compel the president and the administration to come before Congress to explain what their mission is, to explain what the expenditures are, to explain why we are already over the time limit that the Constitution and the War Powers resolution actually grants to the president to deal with short-term military emergencies. So we have, I think, every single Democratic member on that resolution, and all we need is a handful more, just a few Republicans to actually compel the Speaker to take up that legislation. So we are hoping that as the situation grows more dire, that we may get some support from the Republican members in Congress. After more than 10 weeks of a funding lapse, the Department of Homeland Security funding bill finally went through last week. It had been approved unanimously by the Senate about 5 weeks ago, but only last week would the Speaker take it up, and it passed through. Importantly, however, as Senator Driscoll mentioned, we did not fund ICE. We did not fund ICE so that and that is because we feel, and when I say we, there's a handful of Republicans who feel this way as well. We feel that ICE is not operating under the law, within the law, both with the masks and also the training protocol that they're going through. Their deployment on the direction of the president is outside of constitutional norms, and so part of the response that we've had to the what we believe are illegal activities on the part of the ICE director and also the White House in general is that we have created what is called a litigation task force, and that is a group of 30 members of Congress, men and women, all Democrats, that when the administration is believed to have transcended the law or a cabinet secretary has acted outside the law, we go into federal district court and compel them to appear and answer those claims. I'll give you two examples of what we did recently. There's actually a website, it's called litigationtaskforce.house.gov, if you want to look at the lawsuits that we've brought. We've brought over 600 lawsuits since January of 2025 against this administration for actions that we believe are contrary to law. But two good examples. In 2022, under President Biden, we passed a 5-year Veterans Affairs bill. So we funded the VA for 5 years. That was in 2022. So it's not supposed to expire until 2027. That's very common doing 5-year funding bills. However, when President Trump came in January of 2025, he laid off 8,000 workers at the VA. Those were doctors, those were nurses, those were therapists, those were even the people on the suicide hotline laid off. We went to court, federal court, because we had already, under the previous legislation, we had funded that for 5 years. The district court agreed with us. The administration appealed. The appeals court agreed with us. And so we were able to get that funding restored, but it took 8 months so that many of the docs and nurses and employees who were at the VA either took other jobs. We have yet to refill those vacancies that exist at the VA. And in our area, we've got 3 great VA hospitals, Brockton, all in my district, Brockton, West Roxbury, and Jamaica Plain. And so we still have not recovered, even though the funding has been restored. The second example was research money. And we benefit greatly in our area because of the great universities and research centers we have in our area. We approved billions of dollars, over $100 billion for research money, for research of cancer, research on Alzheimer's, research on autism, research on childhood diabetes. When the president came in under the DOGE Act in January of 2025, he cut that funding. He cut it, even though it had been previously voted into law by President Biden. Again, we had to go into court. We had to go into court, district court. We won at the district court level. Again, they appealed it. We again won. He was forced to restore that funding, but that took over a year to get that victory. So we lost many of our researchers who obviously, you can't go a year without work. And so we lost many of those researchers, and it's been very difficult to restart some of these major research operations at our universities and our research centers once you lose those researchers. So that's the fight that we have. And like I said, it's litigation task force milton.house.gov, and we have a tracking list of all the cases that we're bringing. And also, we've had great help from both the ACLU and a group called Democracy Forward that has, there's over 600 cases. So obviously, members of Congress can't do that alone. We have great support on that, in that respect. I do want to thank you for your willingness to take the time and to attend town meeting and to participate. And 63 years, Marguerite, I think that we should have given you a brand new pickup truck or something like that after all those years. But it's an honor, the honor of my life to represent the town of Milton in the United States Congress, and I know that my colleague, Ayanna Presley, who represents part of Milton as well, feels it the exact same way. And we have been joined at the hip, myself and Ms. Presley, on all of this action that I just described to you in Congress. But God bless the town of Milton, and God continue to bless these United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Lynch. I appreciate both your and Senator Driscoll's willingness to come here and speak with us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you. And now we have an announcement from Linda Lee Sheridan. Linda Lee, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm Linda Lee Sheridan, Town Meeting Member from Precinct 9. I'm here tonight to tell you about the final Milton Music Fest event that is coming up this June. Back in 2012, the town of Milton celebrated its 350th anniversary with activities that spread out throughout the whole year. However, one event in particular really stood out that year, and that was a parade that traveled all around town and ended at Milton High School with a band concert on the football field and fireworks that night. People just wanted that event to continue, so a few of the core organizers from that event started planning, and that's how Milton Music Fest and Celtic Sunday began. And we've continued it now, for this will be our 14th year. This is by far Milton's biggest community event. It's estimated we've hosted over 100 different performances from bands and local artists, and approximately 60,000 people have participated with generations of families and neighbors in attendance. It really seems only fitting that this wonderful event that started with Milton's 350th should come to a conclusion to mark the 250th birthday of our nation. We have a very special weekend planned for you this year on June 20th and Celtic Sunday on June 21st. Now, I know that's Father's Day, but please spend the day with your dads or husbands or friends and then join us in the evening, because both of these festivities, both of these days will be held from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's change for Sunday. We will have live music throughout the time with fireworks both nights on Saturday and Sunday at 9:45 p.m. Some of the things that you can look forward to seeing are, on both days, we'll have an amazingly giant sandbox, again in honor of our dear Jared Crowley, who was the original builder of the sandbox. We'll have 2 water slides, a giant one for the brave of heart, and a mini water slide for the little ones. And don't forget to bring your towels and your change of clothes for your kids. We have cornhole, food and beverages to purchase from Novara and other vendors, free parking at Fontbonne and La Brea, and shuttles available all night. Additionally, on Saturday, we have face painting and favorite characters that will be roaming the field posing for pictures. And believe it or not, one of our most popular events that we've had, axe throwing. On Sunday, Celtic Sunday, this year is dedicated to the memory of a Boston firefighter, Billy Carey, who was also a founding member of the Fenian Sons, who have been staples of our Celtic Sundays since its inception. He recently passed away from work-related occupational cancer. Beginning at 5 p.m. on Sunday, we'll have a fire truck parade in his honor, and fire trucks from across the region will travel over Milton Hill from East Milton past Hutchinson Field into Lower Mills. Bobby Brooks and John Costello, two of Boston's best-known Irish DJs, will be on the stage, and we'll also have a trad tent with traditional Irish music throughout the evening. So with the addition of the second night of fireworks, I guess you could say we're going out with a bang. Our mission has always been to keep this event 100% free for our community, so there are no barriers and everyone can enjoy. This event would not have been possible without the Copeland Family Foundation and their enormous generosity over the years, and to local businesses who have supported us as well. You'd be shocked to see how expensive this event is. Special thanks to all of the town departments: fire, police, DPW, Parks and Rec, Board of Health, Auxiliary Fire Department, schools, and consolidated facilities. Please open your calendars on your phone now and save the dates of June 20th and 21st. And if you also feel moved, we could use donations to help us with the additional firework fee. We accept Venmo at We Are Milton. A shout out to our small but mighty group that puts on this event every year: Kathy Fagan, Glenn Pavlicek, Richard Wells, Gary Kelly, Amanda K. Loring, Kevin Chisholm, and past members Brian Kelly and Eric Miller. As you can tell, we're a small working group, and this year in particular, we're asking for your help. Setup on Friday is from 10 to 2, and we need help cleaning up the field after the fireworks on both Saturday and Sunday nights. And as we will pack up on Monday morning from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., many hands make light work. And if you can help us, please reach out to any of the committee members or just show up. Updates on the bands and all general information can be found on our website, wearemilton.org. And we sincerely thank you on behalf of the committee for your support these last 14 years of making memories in Milton. We hope you can join us this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda Lee. I personally will look forward to the axe throwing. That sounds wonderful. I'm very good at it, actually. So a few preliminary matters. Before proceeding with the business of town meeting, there are certain preliminary matters, as I mentioned, to be taken up. First, permission has been requested for certain members and personnel of the school committee, planning board, board of health, and other boards, committees, and departments who are not town meeting members to sit on the floor with other members of their respective boards, committees, and departments, with the understanding, of course, that they will not vote. Hearing no objection from the body, such permission will be and hereby is afforded. Thank you. Permission is also hereby granted to Milton Access Television to televise these proceedings. Please note that there are 2 side aisle microphones, each with 3, actually more than that, but seats at the front row reserved for those waiting to be recognized to speak. Please also note that as set forth in Rule 7 of the warrant, the relevant Massachusetts general laws, the bylaws of the town of Milton as applicable, and town meeting time 4th edition shall be the official rules of this meeting. Town meeting members interested in the procedural rules are advised to purchase or check out from the library a new copy of town meeting time. As I mentioned last year, many of the rules in the 4th edition have changed from the previous 3rd edition. And again, there's a very helpful appendix at the end detailing the differences between editions 3 and 4. Where there are any such changes, please just remember that the applicable rules are the 4th and not the 3rd edition. The rules of the procedure of this meeting have been summarized by me in the warrant, copies of which have been made available by mail to town meeting members at Town Hall, online, and in the front of this room, and therefore I will not review them in detail. As these are the rules summarized in the warrant and provided in advance to town meeting members, barring any objection, hearing none, these are the rules of this meeting. As a reminder, This meeting shall use the electronic voting system established by the prior town moderator and the town meeting. And accordingly, no voice vote shall be held unless is otherwise indicated by the moderator, which I don't anticipate. Rather, the vote shall be displayed as recorded by the electronic voting system. In the event that 7 members stand in their place, I will display the results of the vote by the town meeting members' names. Time will be given for members to stand. And because I'm very focused on accessibility, if you've noticed, should there be any issues with standing, just let me know. As a further reminder, as I mentioned, there are microphones made available to you on each of the sides of the front of the room, as I mentioned before, with seats reserved for individuals waiting to speak. If you're not a town meeting member and you wish to speak, please inform me in advance, and permission may be granted to registered voters of the town only. Please do not use the podium microphone over there in the center of the room without advance permission. That's primarily going to be reserved for people giving presentations. Please note at this time, and pursuant to Rule 14 of our warrant, speakers are strictly limited to 10 minutes without prior consent by the moderator for additional time, which is largely reserved for town employees and members of the boards and committees providing presentations. I will keep the time, and questions may be directed to the moderator. You also don't need to use all 10 minutes. That's up to you, though. We have in place, as I mentioned, electronic voting. Mr. Mallett, the town's IT director, will operate the electronic voting system. At the conclusion of an article's discussion, rather than calling for a voice vote, I will call for an electronic vote, again, unless is otherwise indicated, which I don't anticipate. All those in favor of the motion shall press the yes button, which you can see is 1 or A. All those opposed shall press the no button, which is 2 or B. And if you're in abstention, you can press nothing at all, or should you choose, press abstain, which is 3 or C. Please don't press any other button other than yes, no, or abstain. You will have 45 seconds to vote. You may change your vote at any time during the 45 seconds. At the end of the 45 seconds allotted, I will announce that the vote has been closed and the results shall be displayed on the projector right there. I will read both the percent and the numerical vote count so that the town clerk may record them for the record. Where the required vote is a 2/3 vote, which I'll let you know ahead of time, I will announce whether the 2/3 threshold is met. And as is customary, I will include only the yes and no votes in the vote total. So everybody's favorite part, we're now going to have a test vote for the electronic voting system. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. And the question, I always look forward to this part because Mr. Mallett comes up with very funny examples. Did you watch Star Wars on May the 4th be with you this week? Again, yes is A or 1, B is no. You could press 2 for no as well, and C or 3 is abstain. We're going to have 45 seconds. If you do not see your clicker light up or you have any issues with the technology, please come up to the front stairs or raise your hand and let Mr. Mallett know. After the 45 seconds, we're going to go through the list, and you please check your name and the vote. And again, if there are any issues, please come to the front if you're able, and Mr. Mallett will assist you. If you're unable to come to the front, just please raise your hand. Thank you. Not so many Star Wars fans, I guess. We have 20 people that did, 200 people that didn't, and 12 people we don't know one way or the other. So if you have any issues, please come up, and Mr. Mallett, if you can kindly display the names and cycle through. Again, as you're looking, if you can't see your name or you don't have a chance to see it or you're not there and you did vote, please come up and let Mr. Mallett know. Thank you. always learn so much about people from these questions, you know? Just really check on your friends here. Wonderful. So if your vote was incorrect, or you didn't see it, or yours didn't light up, please go up to the front and see Mr. Mallet. In the meantime, I'd like to recognize Winston Daly, the chair of the select board, for a brief remark. And before he speaks, and with his permission, I would like to note that Mr. Daly is the very first Black individual to serve as the chair of the select board in Milton. Thank you for your service and your dedication to Milton, Mr. Daly.
All right, thank you. Little different standing up here tonight, but thank you all, and good evening. Before I continue my remarks, I just want to acknowledge a lot of folks and the work that they've done. First, our police and fire departments, all those folks working in public safety. We'll hear from them later. Our Sue Galvin, our town clerk, all the town staff managing our day-to-day, and an election account that took them late into the night last Tuesday. Nick Milano, Amy Dexter, Joanna McCarthy, and their work as our financial arm. Rob Mallet, handling electronics tonight. Linda Napoli as well. Our town moderator, the warrant committee, our planning board, and especially as the parent of a graduating senior, our Milton School Committee and MPS. Thank you all for the care that you have for our young people. I also want to take some time to welcome our newest select board members. First, John Driscoll, who was elected in the fall. Pete Obersheimer and Megan Nolan. And for all three of you, I want to give you a reference point. 1 year ago, when I was elected, I had long hair and perfect vision. And so understand, we do a lot of work on this board. I also want to give sort of a shout out and farewell to our board members who are leaving. First, Ben Zoll, who became my friend, I think about 13 years ago. We met as our daughters were learning to ride their bikes down Capon Street. Big Ben Zoll fans.
All right.
Ben has always been a well of encouragement for me. He encouraged me to run. And during his time on this board, he is someone who has modeled really being steadfast in your beliefs and standing up for your belief in. So thank you, Ben, for your time here on the board. Secondly, I really want to thank a Milton staple, Richard Wells, who is not here to get these flowers, but I'll give them to him anyway. In one of our last meetings, Mr. Wells remarked that this year is the first time in 60 years that a Richard Wells will not be employed by the town of Milton. That kind of struck me and gave me pause to think about a family who has given 60 years to this town and has passed on 60 years of the concept of serving. And so I will paraphrase something I've heard Mr. Wells say many times. What we do here is all about the 02186. And so thank you, Mr. Wells, for your time and your service, not only you, but your family as well. So Milton is 364 years old, and town meeting is almost as old, from the time that families gathered on the land that held the Massachusetts and the Neponset people. Town meeting for 2026 may seem very old-fashioned. It can also be very frustrating, but it is perhaps the most democratic thing that we can all do when we gather here. 364 years, and I'm the first Black person to hold this seat. And I'm mindful of that responsibility in this position, and I'm grateful for all the people that have entrusted me with this responsibility as well. Unfortunately, in our national politics, we have taken steps backwards in extending the franchise. But I know that here locally, we ensure that every vote counts and we make space for everyone's voice to be heard. Our job in this room is to honor that franchise. We do the work seriously, we listen to one another, and we disagree without malice. I am as invested as all of you are in the work of this town. To end, I want to talk about a word that I've said a lot personally on the campaign. If you speak to me, I will bring this up at some point, and that word is community. We have all these arguments about zoning, density, traffic, what's getting built, where is it getting built, who's building it, who said we could build it. But at the heart of that, also, what gets posted on Facebook, which I could get all of you off of that. And in some of these arguments, we can lose what it is to be part of a caring community, why we all moved here, the thing that keeps us here, what keeps us invested, a community that will wrap its arms around a family when tragedy strikes, the youth leagues, the barbecues, the First Fridays, the coffees, the graduations, a community that can be home to a family for 4 generations, but will still make space for a newcomer. And I'll share a quick story, and this is gonna connect what we've been doing here tonight, funny enough. Around this time last year, my daughter and I were on Adams Street, and we found a wallet. And so, you know, if you lose your wallet, you know the panic that sets in. So we said, we gotta return this. See the address on the license, hop in the car, and drive over to the residence. As I walk up the driveway, I see a woman walking out to the door, and she says, "I know you. You just ran for the select board." My husband, John, was the town administrator for 33 years. And funny enough, that is how I met Marita Cronin. I had no idea she was going to be honored tonight when I decided to write that story. But Mrs. Cronin, serendipity finds us together again, I think, tonight. Because that moment of 5 minutes of me bringing her back her wallet, and then a week later, she drove to my home and left me pastries and milk from Thatcher Farm, are the kinds of moments that build community. And it is a big part of what we do here. So I welcome you all as neighbors to this year's town meeting. I thank you all for putting yourselves forward, not only for the scrutiny, but the hours you will dedicate to this work and the impact that you will have. And so thank you all, and let's have a good town meeting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daly. And now we will hear from the chair of the Warrant Committee, Mr. Jay Fundling. Mr. Fundling, you're recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm Jay Fundling.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Jay Fundling, Chair of the Warrant Committee and Town Meeting Member Precinct 3. I would like to thank Chair Daly for his comments. When he was making his comments, I was amazed to think that when Representative Wells' father started with the Milton Police Department. Ms. Cronin had only been on the Milton Town Meeting for 5 years. I do have a presentation I'd like to share with you. Can I see it on this screen? That would significantly help. Oh, okay, close enough. Okay, great. So I would like to give an overview of the town budget process this year and what we see going into the future. Tonight, what I'm going to give is a shorter version of a presentation I gave at a warrant committee meeting this Monday, which is available to watch on Milton Access TV. Okay. If you can go to slide 2 when it's convenient. I will cover the budget process for this year, including some commentary on the shortfalls that were discussed publicly in January and how those got resolved or not, including why we had shortfalls at all in the year after an override. I will discuss an account called the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund, established last year to help us get between overrides with minimal disruption in service. And I will discuss what we're seeing in coming years, including when we might expect another override and what size that override might be. This forecast will be imperfect, but I'd rather share imperfect numbers now than have the town proceed in the dark. No. Oh, you're clapping for her getting the presentation. Yes, that is. Okay, great, yes, that slide. So what is the Warrant Committee? For new town meeting members, the Warrant Committee is an advisor to town meeting. We are this group sitting at this table to my right, your left. I like to use the analogy of a city council, which most people are familiar with. A city council investigates issues in their city, collects information, and makes decisions as a legislative body. In this town, you are the legislative body. However, it's not efficient to expect all 281 of you to fully investigate the issues that come before you. So the Warrant Committee's job is to look into these issues and present our findings to you. Our most important job is to give you the information you need to make an informed decision. We also provide recommendations of how we feel you should vote. We suggest budget amounts, and we make recommendations on other non-budget items. But our true job is not to tell you how to vote and have you agree with us. Our true job is to give you the information you need, and you may agree with us or you may not. When it comes to the budget, Milton has what is called in the law a strong town administrator who proposes the budget to the Warrant Committee. This is similar to how the president may propose a budget to Congress. In this analogy, the Warrant Committee is like the House Ways and Means Committee, reviewing the budget before passing it on to town meeting, which is like Congress. This year, like in years before, the Warrant Committee agreed with the budget proposed by the town administrator. I'm showing this slide because this was the North Star for my view of the Warrant Committee's role in the budget this year. This was written by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue in 2013 before we had a strong town administrator. At that time, the budget was written by the Warrant Committee, 15 regular residents deciding what the exact budget number should be for all town departments. The Department of Revenue suggested we offload that detail work to a professional, gesturing to the professional, and take on oversight and a high-level role. So the Warrant Committee, rather than look at the minutiae of individual budgets, provides a high-level overview of the town's budgets and fiscal priorities. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide, thank you. A year ago, the town passed a significant override. It was made clear at the time of that override that the override was just to continue level service for the town, not to add significant services or employees to our town departments. It included funding for an operated budget stabilization fund to help us get from one override to the next. This fund was created by town meeting last year and funded by the override, but there was not much discussion of it. It's understandable if you've never heard of it. I made these slides assuming you're not familiar with this fund. 10 minutes from now, you're going to know a lot more about it. I ask your patience for now. When the override was presented, a forecast was shown that showed the budget lasting through 2030 until there was another override. However, there was a problem with that forecast, and that it assumed pay for town and school employees would only go up by 2.5% per year for 5 years. This is not consistent with the town's past experience or with the union contracts that cover the pay for most of our employees. This would be one source of the budget consternation that came up earlier this year. This led to a problem this year when the revenues came in mostly as expected, but the expenses were higher than that assumption. Around January of this year, when numbers were coming together, not only did we have higher, more realistic salary costs than was expected in the prior year's forecast, but at that point in January, we were making cautious assumptions around some of the large budget items, specifically health insurance and state aid. We were assuming health insurance would increase 14%, and we were assuming state aid would be very low. As these numbers came into view a couple months later in March, the health insurance increase was lower than we had anticipated. It ended up being 8%, and the state aid was higher than anticipated. So the expected shortfall in January of several million dollars became a shortfall of almost exactly $1 million in March. Next slide, please. That $1 million shortfall went to the school budget. Now, why did the entire shortfall go to the school budget? One reason is that the school's level service request was higher than the request for the other town departments. The schools asked for 5.2% versus 3.6% for other departments. Also, the school request included a buildup of $1 million in financial reserve to prudently prepare for unexpected expenses in the future. In discussion with myself, the town administrator, and select board members, we thought the schools could adjust that to absorb some of the cut. I don't want to speak for the school committee. You'll hear from them later tonight. But in the end, they conveyed to us they could accommodate the $1 million shortfall with a combination of less reserve savings and cuts to headcount that would not have a detrimental effect on classroom instruction. Next slide, please. In the end, our revenue went up a bit above 3%, which is about what we'd normally expect. Our taxes on existing properties are limited to a 2.5% increase, plus we tax new growth, which means new buildings being built and renovation to existing buildings. So that adds to our tax base, so a 3% increase is about normal. Town and school costs went up a little bit above 3.5%. Shared costs, health insurance being a large one, went up 4.5%. So total expenses went up about 4%. This year, the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund, which I will talk about more in a minute, made up the difference as it is intended to. The numbers on this slide, expenses going up faster than revenue, will be a theme for the rest of the presentation. I do want to point out that these numbers and all the numbers in the presentation are ongoing budget numbers. They specifically exclude one-time revenue and one-time expenses like capital purchases. Next slide, please. I want to have an aside about state aid. This is money from the state government to cities and towns, a big source of our revenue. We heard Senator Driscoll discuss state aid earlier tonight. The lack of state aid has put a strain on local budgets for at least 20 years. This graph shows the top line, what state aid in Massachusetts would have been if it had kept up with inflation since 2007. Instead, you can see from the lower line, during the Great Recession, state aid took a big hit. And when the economy recovered, state aid did not. So you can see by looking at the lower line that it has stayed significantly below where it would have been ever since. This is only one factor in our budget issues, but it's a big one. The Massachusetts Municipal Association, which is what it sounds like, an association of cities and towns, is looking at this as, this is what happens when I go off script, is looking at this and trying to encourage the legislature to provide more state aid. Next slide, please. This is an overview of how the town's budget has grown. Over the last 12 years, we've seen an increase of about 4.9% per year. Next slide, please. Now, this slide is a central image for the presentation. We're forecasting expenses that grow about 4.7% per year, and we forecast revenue that grows about 3.1% per year. This is the story of our finances. This is why we need periodic overrides. They may be delayed, they may be managed, but they cannot be avoided. We can and will look for more efficiencies. We can and will look for more efficiencies in our spending. We can and will look for more sources of funds, but those just adjust this picture. They do not fundamentally change it. Now, a forecast is an estimate, not a hard prediction. The only thing I can promise you about this forecast is that it will not exactly come true. But it fits well with the growth and expenses we saw on the prior slide, and it fits well with expected revenue growth and is a good baseline to start our discussion. We hope things will be better than this, but when it comes to budgeting, hope is a four-letter word. Next slide or 2 slides. Okay, no, yes. So now I promised you I'd talk about the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund. We set up the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund to help us get from one override to the next without cutting services. This is a mechanism several other towns use. Recall the last slide with costs going up more than revenue every year? In the past, one thing Milton would do is pass an override to provide services. Maybe it would have a cushion to get us through year 1 and year 2. And then in year 3, we would look to cut costs. Maybe we would close the library on Sundays. Maybe we would get rid of an art teacher. Then in year 4, we'd have to cut some more. Maybe we'd close the library on Saturdays and get rid of a music teacher. And then as this went on, we would eventually decide we could not reasonably cut anymore. We'd pass an override, hire back the people we lost, reopen the library on the weekends. That's how we dealt with expenses rising faster than revenues. The Operating Budget Stabilization Fund is meant to avoid that so that we can provide the services desired at any point in the override cycle. This graph shows one way it can work. In the early years after an override, we bring in more than we spend, and we put money into the money bucket. As costs grow faster than revenue, the lines cross, and in the later years are spending more money than we bring in, and we take money out of the money bucket. When the bucket runs out of money, we presumably have another override. Next slide, please. This is Milton's Operating Budget Stabilization Fund. It's funded with $700,000 annually approved in the override, growing at 2.5% per year. It was also funded with $2 million in one-time cash that last year's town meeting approved, and tonight the warrant proposes an additional $1 million in one-time cash. This graph assumes we're not going to put any more one-time funds in future years, and the assumed withdrawals are going up in a stair-step fashion, similar to how the shortfall goes up every year. This graph shows the fund running out in 2030. Next slide, please. One big choice the town has to make is how fast we spend down the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund. We can't put off this decision because it's a big determinant. This is a big determinant in how much of the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund we will have in the FY28 budget that we put off next year. I'm going to go illogically from right to left. Stick with me. If we want the fund to last through 2030, we would expect the budget we vote on next year to have $1.4 million from the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund in it. If we shorten that time, we can pull more out. If we want it to last till 2029, we would expect the next budget to have $2 million from this fund in it. Or if we want it to last only until 2028, the next budget could have $4.4 million from this fund in it. I'll say more about all 3 of these options in a minute, but the main point of this slide is that making a decision about how long we want the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund to last has a direct impact on the budget we will make next year. So this is not a decision we can put off for years. It's not even a decision that should wait till next spring. It should be made in the summer or very early in the fall before the budget process starts. The Warrant Committee is happy to advise on this decision, but it would be best if the Select Board makes a decision on a key policy like this for the town. And I should say, I fully expect any decision made before the budget process starts will have flexibility, but we should start with a target. Next slide or 2. Okay. A couple comments about the forecasts you're about to see. This town will have other financial pressures in coming years. We expect to renovate or build a 3rd fire station, and we may be building a new school. These forecasts do not include these significant factors. Also, as I said before, these forecasts exclude one-time revenue and expenses. Next slide. Okay, as I said a few slides ago, a key question is how long we expect the Operating Budget Stabilization Fund to last. This slide uses the OBSF payout pattern we saw a few slides ago. It lasts until 2030, and presumably the town would then vote on an override in the spring of 2030, 5 years after the last override. I know it might be hard to see details from your seats. Red is bad. With the expected growth in costs and revenues, this is just not enough. We'd be falling behind by $2.5 million in FY28, growing to a shortfall of $6.4 million in FY30. To put this in perspective, to use round numbers, let's say an employee costs $100,000 in salary plus benefits. Very round numbers to make the math easy. then we would have to reduce town services by the equivalent of 25 employees in FY28, growing to 64 employees in FY30. Now, if this actually happens, not all the savings would need to come from layoffs, but that gives a sense of the scale of services reduction that we'd be facing. This does not seem to be a situation where the town could expect to provide the services the residents expect, and therefore the warrant committee did not examine this scenario further. Next slide, please. If we want the operating budget stabilization fund to last through 2029, we can spend it down faster, providing more funds. There would presumably be an override in spring of 2029, 3 years from today, 4 years from the last override. This does lead to shortfalls below the level service budget. Town and school departments would take a hit. There would probably be a reduction in services and/or staff. If we get lucky with things like state aid or health insurance inflation, we might weather this with minimal service reductions. If the dice don't fall our way, or if there is a recession, it could be worse than this. This is an option that the town should consider if we're okay with hoping for the best and are prepared to cut back on expenses if necessary. Next slide. If the operating budget stabilization fund lasts through 2028, we could be looking at override 2 years from today, 3 years from the last override. In this scenario, we can cover level service needs for the town. Next slide, please. If we're talking about the next override, it is prudent to ask how large those overrides might be. Now, the timing and the size of any future override would be a decision made by the select board at that time. I cannot say when or how large an override would be. I can only do some math. In order to estimate the size of future override, I made 2 significant assumptions. One is that if before the override there's a reduction in level service, the town would bring funding back up to that level service. To go back to the examples I used earlier, if we close the library on the weekend, passing the override would lead to us reopening the library on the weekend. If we lay people off, passing the override would lead to rehiring those positions. That's an assumption I'm making. The second big assumption is that any override would include funding for an operational budget stabilization fund to carry us 4 or 5 years into the next override. I know this picture doesn't make sense, but I'll use it to show how the override is built in the next few slides. Let's go to the next one right now. To build the override, first we need to increase the prior year's revenue to cover that year's expenses. We need to increase the revenue to cover the amount that came from the operating budget stabilization fund, which we've now exhausted in this future scenario, and make up any shortfalls from the prior year. Next slide, please. We would then need to increase the tax revenue to reflect the growth in expenses for the next year. And the next slide. And then finally, if we remember the picture of the money bucket earlier, we want to fund the new operating budget stabilization fund in the early years so it can carry us through to the next override. A question we'll have to answer is how long we want that override to last. Overrides that last 4 or 5 years are the options that I've examined. An override that lasts longer will also cost more upfront. Next slide. No words or numbers, but here's the full picture with an override increasing our revenues and funding an OBSF in the early years and drawing from that operating budget stabilization fund in later years. Next slide, please. If we do all that math, here's what we get. I'm showing options of overrides that'll last either 4 or 5 years until we need another one. If we wait until 2030, it seems we would have catastrophic budget shortfalls, so I did not do a calculation for that option. If we have an override in the spring of 2029, we could expect some budget shortfalls for 2 years before then, and then if we want an override to last 5 years, it would be approximately $14.5 million. If we want it to last 4 years, it would be $13 million. If we have an override in the spring of 2028, we could cover our level service budget until then, and then if we want it to last for 5 years, it would be $11.5 million. If we want it to last 4 years, it would be $9.5 million. Remember what I said earlier about the forecasts. This isn't what would really happen, but this is my best guess to guide the town for looking forward into the future. And of course, any future override would actually be determined by the select board at that time. Next slide, please. Okay, here are some ways the forecast could change. They could change for the better or for the worse. I'm almost as worried about being too cautious as I am about not being cautious enough. I don't want to be the boy who cried wolf. Health insurance. I'm assuming 8% health inflation. That's what we're looking for next year. For the long term, for several years, this is probably too high, but we don't know what it'll be in the short term. So I'm using the most current number we have. State aid. There are groups lobbying for more state aid to cities and towns, but if we have a recession, we might expect state aid to reduce as it did in the last one. Free cash doesn't directly help the operating budget, but a windfall could provide money to the operating budget stabilization fund. Shortfalls in free cash might mean we choose to spend on one-time expenses from the operating budget. New growth, which I mentioned earlier, it adds to the tax base. We have several large buildings in progress, halfway through being built in town right now. As they're completed, that should add more to the tax rolls, but once those are done, it might slow down. One factor is employee behavior. So much of our budget is driven by town salaries. If high-paid long-service employees retire and are replaced with lower-paid new hires, that can have a big impact. The final line is commercial development or pilot payments. These do get a lot of attention. These can help, but I would caution that before we think of these as solutions, I would encourage anyone to do some calculations to see how much they will help. They can generate funds, but I have yet to see something that makes me think it can change the underlying reality of our expenses growing faster than our revenues. Next slide, please. Some issues that the select board will need to consider when making a future override decision. How many years do we want the override to last? I already mentioned that. But also, all the numbers I've talked about tonight are looking at level service. We're getting the same number of employees, same level of service that we're getting right now. Does the town want level service? I don't know. The warrant committee is not a political body, and that seems to be a political question. But we can say that many departments in town could provide more services that would be enjoyed by the residents. Police, fire, DPW, library, council on aging, obviously the schools, all could provide more services to the people who live here with more funding for additional employees or programs. This is something a future select board should consider when setting an override amount. Next slide, please. Is this the last one? Yeah, it is. In conclusion, we have a budget for FY27, which seems to meet the town's needs, but we are facing coming issues in the ongoing budget, as well as possible new buildings. I hope you're more comfortable now with the operating budget stabilization fund and how it gets us from one override to the next with minimal reduction in services. If we plan for the next override, we can prevent surprises for residents as well as town departments. In order to plan for the FY28 budget, the warrant committee wants to do whatever we can to help the select board make a decision about a target year for the exhaustion of the override budget stabilization fund and a possible override. Operating budget stabilization fund. We encourage this decision before next fall so the town can have that information when planning the next budget. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your service on town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Funling. Thank you for also providing the presentation on Monday as well. We're now going to proceed to the consent agenda. Please note that pursuant to Rule 15 of the warrant, the consent agenda was publicly posted on the town website 5 days prior to town meeting. And the consent agenda has also been provided to you on this pink piece of paper at the front of the room. So if you don't have one, our wonderful warrant committee clerk is also going to post it on the projector here. Okay, so the consent agenda lists all of the articles in which, based upon the records of recent town meetings, I, the moderator, deem to be likely to be non-controversial. However, if 5 or more members of town meeting raise their hands as we go through them to remove an article from the consent agenda, then that article shall be removed from the consent agenda and will be debated and voted upon in accordance with the provisions of town meetings rules in the ordinary course. All articles remaining on the consent agenda shall be voted upon without debate with a 2/3 vote required for adoption. So first, because of the 2/3 vote requirement, certain matters coming before town meeting require the 2/3 vote. So In accordance with Chapter 448 of the Acts of 1996, I'll entertain the following procedural motion that allows the moderator to declare that a 2/3 vote majority has occurred. That motion is, on matters requiring a 2/3 vote by statute, account need not be taken unless the vote so declared is immediately questioned by 7 or more members of the body as provided in General Laws, Chapter 39, Section 15. Will anybody say so moved? Thank you. Is there a second? Okay. All in favor? Say aye. All opposed? Okay. The motion's unanimous and carries. Thank you. Again, I want to remind you that pursuant to Rule 15 in the warrant, if any 5 voters ask to take an article off the consent agenda, it must be removed. Okay. I will now list the articles on the consent agenda one by one. So if you object to the article remaining on the consent agenda, please raise your hand. If 5 total members raise their hand to strike the article from the consent agenda, this will be done without debate, and the article shall be stricken. I will then read the articles not on the consent agenda, just for purposes of clarity. Ms. Karen Bosworth, the Warrant Committee Clerk, is, again, as I mentioned before, displaying the consent agenda on the projected screen, and it's also provided to you on the pink paper. At the end, we will vote on the entire consent agenda with any stricken articles removed, and that vote will require a 2/3 majority. I'll say that at least 5 more times. Okay, so we have, skipping over Article 1, we have Article 2, authorize the treasurer to enter into compensating balance agreements. Okay, I see nobody. That stays. Article 3, capital budget appropriation. I see 2 hands. 3, 4. Somebody said up here. Diane, did you raise your hand? No. I'm sorry. Okay. Well, 5. Thank you. Up there. Okay, 5. So that one will come off. Article 3 is off. Article 4 is audit appropriation. Okay, I see nobody. That remains. Article 5, collective bargaining wage set aside. I see no hands. That will remain. Article 6, employee benefits appropriation. I see no one. That will remain. Article 7, Chapter 61, position classifications and wage increases. Seeing none, Article 7 will remain. Article 8, public safety appropriation. I definitely see 5, so that will come off. Article 8 being removed. Article 9, general government appropriation. I see none. That will remain. Article 10 is boards and committees appropriation. I see none. Article 10 will remain. Article 11, public works appropriation. Okay, there are 5 there. That will come off. Article 12, water enterprise fund appropriation. Article 12 will remain. Article 13, sewer enterprise fund appropriation. I see none. Article 13 will remain on the consent agenda. Article 14 is stormwater enterprise fund appropriation, Article 14, I see none. That will remain. Article 15 is appropriation for water system improvements. I see none. Article 16, is appropriation for sewer system improvements. And I see none. Article 16 will remain. Article 17, Board of Health appropriation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Article 17, Board of Health appropriation will be removed from the consent agenda. Article 18, library appropriation. And Article 18 will remain on as I see none. Article 19, cemetery appropriation. I see none, so the cemetery appropriation will remain on the consent agenda. Article 20, Parks and Recreation Appropriation. Seeing none, Article 20 will remain. Article 21, Consolidated Facilities Appropriation. I don't see any there, so Article 21. Article 22 is already not on the consent agenda, and that's the schools. Article 23, the Blue Hills Regional Technical School Appropriation. I see none for Article 23. That will remain. Article 24, Interest and Maturing Debt Appropriation. I see none for Article 24, and that will remain. Article 25, to rescind unissued debt authorizations. I see none. Article 25 will remain on the consent agenda. Article 26, Stabilization Funds Appropriation. I see no hands. Article 27, Reserve Fund Appropriation. And I see no hands there. Article 28, Authorize Revolving Fund Expenditure Limits. I see no hands, so Article 28 will remain. Article 29, PEG Access Enterprise Fund Appropriation. 1, 2, 3, keep them up, 4, 5, 6, okay? That's 29, and that will come off. Article 30, Community Preservation Committee Funds Appropriation. I see none. Article 31, Community Preservation Committee Projects Recommendation. I see 1 and only 1. Okay, that one will stay. I'm sorry, raise them again. Oh, you're in the back, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 1, 2, okay, 5. All right, great. So that one will come off. Article 32 was already off. Article 33, authorize the select board to accept, abandon, or relocate easements. And I see none. Okay, perfect. So, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that. And these are the articles that will remain on the consent agenda. If you'll bear with me. Article 1, hear the report of town officers. We removed Article 3, capital budget appropriation. We removed Article 8, public safety appropriation. Article 11, public works appropriation. Article 17, Board of Health appropriation. Article 22, schools appropriation. Article 29, PEG Access Enterprise Fund appropriation. Article 31, Community Preservation Committee Projects recommendation. Article 32, Community Preservation Committee borrowing authorization. Article 34, accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 15B, the Tax Title Collection Revolving Fund. Article 35, accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Sections 22I, and Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5C and a half. Article 36, appropriation for the design of an addition or renovation to the Atherton Street Fire Station. Article 37, authorize the Select Board to enter into energy credit agreements. Article 38, authorize the Select Board to enter into pilot agreements for renewable energy facilities. Article 39, authorization of lease, power purchase agreement, and land transfer for solar storage at the fire headquarters and town hall. Article 40, the same, but with respect to the Milton Public Library. 41, the same, but with respect to the Milton Animal Shelter. And Article 42, zoning bylaw amendment. If I missed any, I don't think I did, but if I did, let me know. Otherwise, we will vote. Yes, sir, you have a comment.
I do, Madam Moderator. Leroy Walker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. Now that Article 11 has been removed, I would just like to request that when that article is discussed, that the Director of Public Works also provide a detailed discussion of the roads and repair maintenance plans for the town over the next 3 to 5 years, including specific streets.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Okay. So we will now vote on the consent agenda. If anybody has any questions about what remains on the consent agenda, let me know. All those in favor of the consent agenda, this must be a 2/3 majority vote in order to pass. Press 1 or A. If not, press 2 or B, or you can abstain by not pressing anything or pressing C or 3. Wonderful. So we have yes, 231, no, 1, and abstain 2. That will be a 2/3 vote, and that will be our consent agenda. Thank you all very much. Okay, now we're moving to Article 1. Article 1 is submitted by the Select Board to hear and act upon the report of the town accountant and other town officers and committees. First, Mr. Sean O'Rourke, who's the chair of the School Building Committee, has asked to present on behalf of that committee. Mr. O'Rourke, you are recognized. Thank you.
Good evening. Twist that up. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Sean O'Rourke, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8, Chair of the School Building Committee. Next slide, please. As a reminder to the body, the School Building Committee was formed in 2019 town meeting to address the overcrowding crisis that exists in the Milton Public Schools. We are made up of 9 voting members, which are appointed by the town 5 of which are appointed by the town moderator, 2 are appointed by the select board, and the remaining 2 are appointed by the school committee. The remaining members on this committee are non-voting and were amended last year at the 2025 town meeting, and that was to align with MSBA's requirements. In my professional life, bless you. In my professional life, I'm the director of electrical engineering for WSP and also a project manager. It's a multidisciplined engineering firm. I also sit on the board of directors for the Construction Managers Association of America. The other members of this committee have deep educational and professional experience as architects, engineers, and construction managers, all of which have been volunteering their time for greater than 7 years. Next slide. Most cities and towns in Massachusetts and across the country are experiencing declines in student enrollment. However, that decline is not occurring in Milton. As can be seen in our current enrollment, our elementary schools continue to be overcrowded. Essentially, we are serving the equivalent of 5 schools within the walls of 4 facilities. This overcrowding crisis emerged over a decade ago, and it's forecast to continue as young families with children move to Milton. Overcrowding is a detriment to students and teachers and negatively impacts the learning experience. Next slide. The School Building Committee has been hard at work for the past year working in concert with Mass School Building Authority. As you may recall, the town did not originally qualify for MSBA reimbursement. However, after intensive work, last year the town was invited to the MSBA program, and Milton is now eligible for reimbursement of approximately 45% of eligible construction costs. This will significantly reduce the burden to Milton taxpayers. This invitation began in May 2025 when the School Building Committee began MSBA's Module 1 eligibility. Within this module, the town was required to submit documentation regarding enrollment, current and historical, birth rates within the town, building permit data, housing sales, and even maintenance records. This documentation was submitted to the Mass School Building Authority in July 2025. During the period from July to December of last year, the MSBA utilized a third-party independent educational consultant to develop enrollment projections for the planned project. In February, after meeting with the town on multiple occasions, the MSBA Board of Directors voted to approve Milton's enrollment for the project and to advance the town to Module 2, forming our project team. We are currently in the process of onboarding an owner's project manager. Next slide. The MSBA enrollment projection letter provided to the town identified the following project options and planned enrollments. 1, an addition renovation to Collycott Cunningham School, the planned enrollment of 1,400. Second, a new elementary school, grades K to 5, with an enrollment of 495 students, plus approximately 112 preschool. Third, a new middle school, grades 7 and 8, enrollment of 660 students, plus approximately 112 preschool. While we do not believe in a large addition to the Collycott Cunningham is feasible, we are required by MSBA to look at this as an initial option. It should be noted, while this process may appear slow, the MSBA provided a thorough and methodical review of the data that was provided and determined these enrollments, again, through a third-party independent consultant. Next slide. As I mentioned, the School Building Committee progressed to Module 2, forming the project team, where we will build a design team that will investigate these options in our feasibility study, Module 3, short to come. Next slide. The School Building Committee issued a request for services in April and already participated in a site walk at Gile Road with a number of interested owners, project manager firms. We'll be shortlisting the respondents down to 3 and conducting interviews in the coming months with the anticipation of finalizing this selection in July. For the selection of the architecture firm, For the selection of the architecture firm, the town will participate in the MSBA designer selection panel. We will have 3 of the 15 seats. Next slide. School Building Committee is aware of the recent announcement of the closing of Library College and the potential opportunity to purchase this property. Myself and other representatives of the town have toured the facility and secured initial documents. School Building Committee met this past Monday and plans to engage an architect to properly ascertain the viability of this facility to house an educational program that may alleviate the overcrowding. Next slide. As I mentioned previously, in the coming months, we'll be engaging professional services of an owner's project manager and an architectural team to lead the development of the feasibility study to review the potential options. As a selection of the preferred options occur sometime roughly in 2027, the School Building Committee and the design team will perform a schematic design of the preferred option. The development of this preferred option will result in a construction cost assumed to be in 2028. At that time, the decision to fund the project will occur, and in order for this project to be funded, the following must occur. First, the select board must vote in a 2/3 majority to allow a town-wide ballot, meaning 4 out of 5 select board members must vote yes, not to support the project, but to allow the voters to vote on this. Second, this body will have to vote in a 2/3 majority to approve that article as it comes up. And then finally, a town-wide ballot with a simple majority must pass. After the passage of these votes, detailed design will commence and construction will follow shortly thereafter. In closing, addressing Milton's overcrowding crisis is critical to maintaining the educational excellence of Milton Public Schools. This is not a new problem, and every data point we have indicates future enrollment will continue to be well above what schools were designed to educate. The fact was confirmed by the Mass School Building Authority. The School Building Committee's role is to examine these options and present the recommendations to the school committee, to the select board, and ultimately to this body. We recognize this will not be easy, but as Milton faced challenges before when the town rebuilt all 6 of its schools in the late 90s, early 2000s, we have full faith that the elected representatives of the town will do what is best for the long-term interest of Milton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. And now we have Mr. Earl Fay of the Milton Housing Authority. Mr. Fay is not a town meeting member, but I have granted him permission to speak. Thank you, Mr. Fay.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Yes, my name is Earl Fay. I live at 45 Annapolis Road in Milton, and I had been a Precinct 1 town meeting member for 13 years. And I am the Executive Director of Milton Housing Authority. Milton Housing Authority has 39 units of elderly and disabled housing. We have 12 units of family housing. We manage 4 of the state mobile vouchers. We have 2 group homes, and we manage 218 federal housing choice vouchers. One thing, as you can see, there are no articles in the warrant to fund your Milton Housing Authority. And so while the Housing Authority may not receive monetary support at this moment, we certainly are supported in many ways by the town, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to speak tonight. We interact with multiple departments regularly. I would like to thank the Public Works, Police and Fire, Animal Control, Town Clerk, Milton Retirement Office for their ongoing and frequent support and assistance with the Housing Authority. And we certainly have various interactions with the Town Administrator, Information Technology, Assessor's Office, Council on Aging, Health Department, Inspectional Services. So Milton Housing Authority truly is supported by the town, and it is time for the Housing Authority to interact more with local stakeholders and to share our story. But now, as matters involving affordable housing are discussed, whether here at town meeting or at other meetings of other boards and committees or neighborhood organizations, it is critical to consider that it is equally important to preserve the integrity of our aging affordable housing stock as it is to build new units. It takes years to plan for a single unit to be built, and a unit can be taken offline, an aging unit can be taken offline very quickly. There are currently 2 units of elderly and disabled housing at 65 Miller Ave that have been offline for 1.5 years, and that's due to aging drain pipe situation. Now that was unforeseeable. It is absolutely foreseeable that exterior doors and windows and siding that are over 40 years old will fail and are in fact failing now. And so I brought this concern to the state, and back in early March, I walked the property with one of HLC's architects, and he confirmed that there is no question that the building envelope, the entire building envelope of each building at 65 Miller Ave is well beyond its natural life and needs replacement. And he made this point: local funding is essential to housing stabilization. And HLC discusses housing stabilization frequently. The initial estimate to complete the required work is about $1.5 million. So a few weeks ago, I was at a conference and had the opportunity to have lunch with HLC's Director of Project Management for the Capital Construction and Modernization Unit. And I discussed, how do we fund a $1.5 million project? And he reiterated the point that preserving aging affordable housing stock is as important, if not more important, than building new housing stock. And he noted that the state does have a significant resource, and that is the High Leverage Asset Preservation Program funds. Those are known as HILAP dollars. And these funds can match local dollars by up to 2.5 times. And so he described to me how across the Commonwealth, housing authorities are being awarded CPA funds and other local funds for precisely these purposes. And those awards are then leveraged by HILAP funding. And so the state wants to see local funding support for housing authorities. And when they see it, they will match it with significant resources. So $400,000 of local support could yield Milton Housing Authority $1 million additional dollars in HILAP funding. So over 40 years ago, local support came together and we built 39 units of housing for the elderly and disabled at 65 Miller Ave. Milton Housing Authority needs local support again to ensure the continued safety and functionality of these units. I look forward to having this conversation with Milton stakeholders. So I thank you for your time. I thank you, the town, for the many ways you assist the Housing Authority. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me. There's cards of mine at the table outside. I'm at efay@miltonhousingauthority.com. So please reach out, learn more. I'd be happy to speak with you. And thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Fay. With respect to Article 1, Mr. Fundling, is there any additional comment by the Warrant Committee? No. Mr. Daly, any additional commentary by the Select Board on Article 1? No. Okay, we will now open Article 1 up for discussion. Yes, sir, you are recognized. Oh.
Madam was waiting.
Okay.
Thank
Ma'am.
you, Mr. Hiss. My name is Lori Stillman, Precinct 2, and I first want to thank and congratulate Mr. Fundling for that amazing financial forecasting presentation. I mean, I've been a town meeting member for almost 30 years, and this is exactly what we've been waiting for. And I hope that all of our committees will keep it in mind, and that it's not going to sit on the shelf, but that we'll be doing something with it. And I also want to commend the Warrant Committee for both the content and the tone of the warrant itself. It was clearly very collaborative and respectful of all the town departments, and we really appreciate it. I just have one quick question. I read the report, and there was a question that came up for me, and that had to do with the new growth projections. I noticed that there was a forecast of about a third less new growth income for next year than this year, and that's a lot of money to the town. So I'm just wondering how you came up with that forecast, unless I read the budget incorrectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fundling, if you're able to speak to that.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Jay Fundling, Town Meeting Member Precinct 3, Chair of the Warrant Committee. If you would recognize Town Administrator Nick Milano, I think he could address this better than I could.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Milano, you're recognized.
Thank you, Nicholas Milano, Town Administrator. So I think this is where we're still working through where our revenue projection should be. If you look at just the past couple of years, our new growth certainly has been over the $1 million mark that's currently in the projection. But that's based on what has been kind of a high level watermark of both additions and renovations going on in existing single family homes and others, and new construction. So we're probably at more of a peak than the norm. So the basis of having a lower estimate than we've been in the past year is just to be conservative and to be safe. And that new growth number does not actually get finalized until fall of 26. So it's a kind of a lagging indicator. So we feel more comfortable keeping it below kind of where it was last year. Last year was almost $1.5 billion, but we're keeping it conservative to be safe, just because it's a lagging indicator. We don't have all the information yet. We'll adjust in future years if we feel we can continue to accommodate that level of growth.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Ms. Stillman, did that answer your question? Yes, okay. Sir, you are recognized.
Thank you, Bob Hiss, Town Meeting Member Precinct 3. My question is on the Personnel Board. I looked on the town website, and the board is listed as to be appointed with no members, and I did a quick scan of the annual report, which came out 2 days ago, I think, Mr. Milano, you said. I didn't see a report from the board on it. I didn't see anything in the HR area. I met with Mr. Milano, I think 2 years ago, to talk about the future of the board.
it seems to be dormant. And so my first question is, what's the latest on it? And I have a follow-up, perhaps, depending on that answer.
Thank you. Mr. Milano, if you'd like to speak to that.
Yes, I think the status quo, where there had been members who had no longer participating and new members have yet to be appointed for that board. So I guess we can use that as a plug if you're interested, but there has not been an active personnel board in a couple of years now.
Thank you. Mr. Hiss?
Yeah, the follow-up would be, I think the board's been around for decades. It was refreshed, Mr. Walker and Mr. Neely might know, 2016 or 17, I think we refreshed the personnel board's role. And so it's called for in our bylaws to be filled by the moderator. So if now the town is now thinking there's no point in it, then I would advise the town to bring forth an article to disband it. If it still has a role, then I would suggest that the moderator fill it. But one way or the other, do something, since it's just hanging out there empty at the moment. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hiss. Anybody else? Ma'am? Go ahead. You're recognized.
Cindy Christensen, Precinct 7. My question is for the School Building Committee. As the School Building Committee knows, another town meeting member and I have done extensive research trying to match what's been said with actual facts. And we came up with 3 reports. I want to ask about our second and third report that we researched and provided over a year ago. The second report has to do with as-built classroom numbers, and all of the information that we could find that was presented to MSBA had the incorrect number of what's called strands, number of classrooms per grade. And it was off by a significant amount. I believe the claim was from the school committee that the as-built number of classrooms for the elementary schools was 87, but if you look at the as-built floor plans, it's 95. So when it said that a third-party independent consultant approved this funding from MSBA, I'm wondering what information they got from the as-built. The third report that we did, we looked at housing and were disappointed to see that a lot of the housing that was claimed to be new was actually, if you look at town records, was actually already purchased and people were living there. So I'm wondering, and we've been trying to find out, was that the information that was provided to MSBA, to these third-party independent consultants? Perhaps the third-party independent consultants did their own research, and if they did, that would be very helpful to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. Mr. O'Rourke, do you have a response to Ms. Christensen's questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Moderator. Sean O'Rourke, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8, Chair of the School Building Committee. There were a number of questions there. Could you just repeat those? So I'll try to address them as they're coming up.
Ms. Christensen, where did she go? I'm sorry. Oh, yes, Ms. Christensen, could you just briefly summarize those different questions that you had? I can hear you, and I'll repeat, yes. Okay, so my understanding, Ms. Christensen, is that your two questions are, one, regarding a report that Ms. Christensen provided about the as-built capacity for the elementary schools, and the second being growth on the new constructions. That's correct, Ms. Christensen, those two reports. Thank you. Mr. O'Rourke, does that help?
It does, I appreciate it. So
Sure.
similar to the first report that the previous speaker reported to, School Building Committee dove into that report, provided a detailed response to it, and initially that report actually wasn't provided to the School Building Committee, it was actually provided to the Select Board that then came to the School Building Committee. So we went through that first report, provided a detailed response to it. It's on the YouTube page and for everything to see. The other reports that are being referenced, reports, I think it's 2 and 3, we received probably 8 to 9 months after that report, so there's some due diligence that went into it. School Building Committee at our meeting on Monday formed a separate subcommittee to look at this. So right now, the School Building Committee is reviewing it. In regards to what was submitted to the Mass School Building Authority, I know this previous speaker had received a copy of our statement of interest, and all that information was in our statement of interest. Their reports were also shared with the MSBA that I also believe is referencing or reviewing these. So at this point, you know, with the amount of work that we're working on, we don't have a formal response to it, but we are looking into it as part of that subcommittee.
Thank you. Ma'am, I see you in the front. You're recognized.
Megan Walsh, Precinct 7, 107 Church Street. Did you just say that you did a deep dive on our initial report, Sean? Could you respond to that? Because we've been waiting for a response for 2 years now, and the MSBA actually sent Superintendent Phelan, as well as the MSBA, the new school committee, what I don't know what you call it at this point, but demanded that you have a response back to the MSBA and myself. I was one of the other people with Ms. Christensen, Dr. Christensen, who formulated that report. We've never received a deep dive or any information.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I apologize.
Ms.
Sorry.
Walsh, if you could direct your questions.
Yes.
My understanding is that your question is, did Mr. O'Rourke provide a detailed report to you as he indicated? Is that correct?
Well, he indicated
ahead.
there was a deep dive.
Oh, excuse me, a deep dive and then a response.
We've been asking for a response to that. We've never received a deep dive, and the MSBA sent a direct letter to Superintendent Phelan asking for that. So I'm just asking where that information is and why it hasn't been directed to myself and Dr. Christensen.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Mr. O'Rourke, if that's something that you can respond to. And thank you for that point of order. If everybody can, in fact, direct their comments to me. No problem. Go ahead.
No problem. So the response on the deep dive, that was to the first report. And as I mentioned, that was provided initially to the Select Board in 2024. The deep dive we did had a response, I believe it was in September, School Building Committee of 2024. There's a clip of that we went through and did basically a full analysis of that. We went back after doing that deep dive, presented to Select Board. After response of that deep dive to report number 1, probably about 8 months went by, 9 months went by, reports 2 and now 3 have come in, and those are the ones we're actively working in, and those are the ones that MSBA responded to. MSBA did not respond to report number 1.
Okay. May I just ask where that information for the deep dive would be located, because I have not seen anything.
Yes, I think that's a fair follow-up question, and then we'll move on. Mr. O'Rourke, go ahead.
So as I mentioned, it was presented on a School Building Committee meeting. I believe the previous Select Board member that was referenced, that was appointed there, requested it, and the School Building Committee dove in to provide that response as part of that. It was never a formal response because, again, the initial report was done to the Select Board, not to School Building Committee. So we provided our response back to the Select Board via that presentation.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move on, and then if you have additional follow-up questions.
I also found a cell phone. I don't know where to.
We have a missing cell phone, if you want to leave that in the front. And if anybody's missing their cell phone, they can
Thank you.
ask the warrant committee. Thank you, Ms. Walsh. Ma'am, you were recognized in the front. Go ahead.
Diane DiTullio, Agostino, Precinct 9, and Chair of the Commission on Disability. It was 30 years ago, I guess, that I was seated at the selectmen's table, now called the select board. Things have changed. However, from my recollection and a quick review, Madam Moderator, of what the personnel board's actions and role is in the town, and remembering what their role used to be, can you please confirm when the personnel board became extinct or no one was serving in that role prior to my question?
That's really a question that I think would be better suited for Mr. Milano. Mr. Milano, did you hear Ms. Agostino's questions? And if you could respond to that.
I mean, terminology is important. Extinct is not the right word. There was a town meeting vote to change the bylaw around the personnel board's authorizations that coincided with when the town administrator's special act was being approved to centralize the HR functions within the select board town administrator's office. And the personnel board's authorities were lessened at that time. In terms of when did the board have less of an active membership, I don't know, Mr. Hiss might have a better recollection, or town clerk may, in terms of when that membership started to get low. I can't speak to in a specific year. I think that was the case when I arrived in September of 22. So I don't have a good answer for you on around when. There was the action of town meeting to change the bylaw around the personnel board's authorities, which was, I think, 2018, if I'm remembering right. And then membership, I think, had started to fall off after that point.
Thank you. I see that the town clerk is coming down. Yes, sure. Ms. Galvin, you're recognized.
So I would have to double check, and I can certainly email you as to when the appointments declined. But I do agree with Mr. Milano that it was somewhere around 18, 19, 20, that it did start to, interest started to decline from the members.
Thank you. Yes,
So
you have a
the-
follow-up question? Go ahead.
Yes, so the question, which obviously it's just been presented, so I didn't have much time to research everything, and I had corrected the word wasn't become extinct, and now we learned that the word changes to the bylaws. And as we all know, the bylaws are to be followed in the town, so if the bylaw, and additionally, you're well aware that the bylaws are written off of Mass General laws, so I'd appreciate town council would be the one who would explain, yes, the Mass General law still exists, maybe personnel boards have less, and that's why we're able to amend our own bylaw on the personnel board. But I think it was very wise to bring this point up, because if it's still in the bylaws and if there is still a purpose and a reason they're supposed to exist, we either need to follow the bylaw or we need to amend it at some future town meeting. So if town council could explain the Mass General law, the changes, and what our requirements are, since it's still part of the bylaw. Thank you.
If the town council can speak to that. Thank you.
Darren Klein, KP Law, through the moderator, and welcome to everyone tonight. Nice to see everyone. Regarding the question, Mass General Law does allow for a personnel bylaw that includes a personnel board, but there's no requirements under Mass law that that personnel board have any specific authority other than what it is given through the town's bylaw. It has definitely become, with more and more town administrator and town manager form of governments, to be more of an advisory role. You know, it does state in your bylaw that as has been discussed, that there needs to be one appointed, but I can tell you in other communities as well, sometimes it's very tough to get people on that personnel board. So, it doesn't take away the town administrator's authority that's stated in the Town Administrator Act, and I think is also recognized in your current personnel bylaw.
Thank you. I see Ms. Christensen, did you have another, I don't see anybody else waiting, so we'll come back to Ms. Christensen. Okay, so for those of you that could not hear Ms. Agostino, she requested a follow-up about the specific rules of our bylaw. If Town Council, Mr. Klein, heard and can answer that question, I would appreciate it.
I will read through the moderator again. I'll read directly from your bylaw. It says, "The Personnel Board and the Town Administrator shall administer the provisions of this chapter as outlined and shall resolve all relevant questions thereunder." It's fairly lengthy, but if you go to section 61.3 of the town bylaws, it lists all the authority of the Personnel Board. It's got 8 subsections, so I'm not sure you want me to read all 8 subsections.
I think not. Ms. Christensen, you are again, I see no one else, so Ms. Christensen will come back to you and then we'll move on. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be brief. 2 points of clarification on what's been said about our report 1. It was actually the school building committee's look at our first report that brought to our attention the inconsistencies in the capacity number of classrooms for our elementary schools. So what they claimed was the capacity when they were trying to correct us on something was off by close to 10 classrooms from what was submitted to MSBA. So the school committee and the school building committee are in disagreement with the capacity number of classrooms in the elementary schools. And we've pointed that out, and we have not gotten a response to that. Also, it was said that we gave our report to the select board. At the time, we did, but at the same time, we gave it to the school building committee and the school committee because the select board and the school committee both had members that they had appointed on the school building committee. So everyone got it because of our concern and the deadline that was approaching for a town meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Christensen. Okay. I see no one waiting to speak to Article 1 other than those people who have already spoken and we've heard from them. Thank you. So that will conclude the discussion on Article 1, and we will now open up the vote. As a reminder, the motion on the floor is the recommendation of the Warrant Committee, which is that the town vote to accept the report of the town accountant and the other town officers and committees. So if you are in favor of Article 1, which is a majority, please indicate by voting on your clicker. A for yes, B for no, and C or press nothing for abstain. Thank you. Wonderful. The article passes. 212 yes, 6 no, 3 abstain. Now we will move to, so Article 2 was on the consent agenda. So we will move to Article 3, which is capital budget appropriation and that was taken off the consent agenda, and that is page 18 of your warrant. The article reads, to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for capital items, to determine how said appropriation shall be raised, whether by borrowing or otherwise, and to act on anything related thereto. It was submitted by the Select Board and the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, and I'll go ahead and ask Mr. Daly if the Select Board would like to speak to this article. And the answer was no. Mr. Fundling, if the Warrant Committee would like to speak to this article, no. And I don't know whether the Capital Improvement Planning Committee is here or would like to speak to the article as the co-submitting body. I don't see. But I do see that Mr. Walker is patiently waiting. Mr. Walker, would you like to be recognized to speak to this article, which we will now open for discussion?
Leroy Walker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. I would like to hear from the chair of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee as to, it's clear what priorities they did recommend for funding. I'm curious as to what priorities they had to forego as they prioritized their recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. And is the Capital Improvement Planning Committee chair here and available to speak? I see Mr. Milano. Mr. Milano, you may be recognized. Thank you.
Mr. Wells is the chair, and I do believe he is no longer with us this evening. Mr. Walker, who would you like to address? We could ask Amy to address it. I could provide kind of an overview. And so if I heard you right, just kind of what projects were not able to be funded in this cycle. A lot, obviously. You know, we're limited on capital, our ability to fund every capital investment that's requested. I'll note, just as one kind of deviation from what our trend has been in the last couple of years, is that this capital budget does include $1.5 million for roads. That figure's been at $1 million the last couple of years. I would say the biggest category of projects that were deferred are largely within our capital facilities plan. You know, we're fortunate that these school buildings are newer than many other communities might have school buildings, but at that same time, they're all about the same age, so they're going to start showing the same age around the same time. So there was a significant amount of facilities projects, I'd say, that we were unable to fund this year. In addition to that, there were a couple of specific school projects related to field improvements that were not recommended by the Capital Committee. You know, looking to maybe do some supplementary funding with Community Preservation Committee in the next round of funding. So there is a particular lighting project at Brooksfield that comes to mind that was a pretty good priority. I think we're doing an okay job in staying on top of our, you know, vehicles and equipment. But I would say, and I know Tom McCarthy, the current facilities director and soon to be DPW director, is here and could speak to some of the capital facilities a bit more directly, but I'd say that was the biggest category of where the deferrals came in.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. Would anybody else like to be heard on Article 3, which is the capital budget appropriation? Okay, I see no one, so we will move to a vote. As a reminder, the motion on the floor is the recommendation of the Warrant Committee, which is recommended that the town appropriate the sum of $6,596,100 to fund the capital projects listed below, and you can read that in your warrant. And I do believe that this is a 2/3 vote. Yes. And following in that, to meet said appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to sell and issue bonds of the note or notes of the town, aggregating not more than $5,380,100 under and pursuant to provisions of Chapter 44, Section 7, and Chapter 44, Section 8 of the Mass General Laws as amended, or any other enabling authority for the purposes listed under the heading Bonded Capital Items, including the payment of costs incidental or related thereto, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, and that the select board be and hereby is authorized to accept and expend, in addition to the foregoing appropriation, one or more grants or gifts from any other public or private funding source, and that the sum of $1,216,000 be appropriated from funds certified by the Department of Revenue as free cash for the purposes listed under the heading non-bonded capital items. So we will open Article 3 up for a vote. Again, this requires a 2/3 majority to pass. This passes 219 yes, 2 no, 1 abstain. That does meet the 2/3 threshold. So we will move on to Article 4 was passed by consent. Article 5 was passed by consent, as was Article 6 and 7. So we will move to Article 8, which is public safety. You can find that, I believe, on page 30 of your warrant. And the article reads, to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 2026 for the several categories classified as public safety and to act on anything related thereto. This was submitted by the Select Board. Mr. Daly, would the Select Board like to speak on this article? No. Going to give Mr. Fundling an opportunity in a minute if he would like to speak on this article on behalf of the Warrant Committee. Mr. Fundling, would the Warrant Committee like to speak regarding the public safety appropriation? No. Okay, I will open this up. Yes, ma'am. Okay. In the future, we'll wait until we open up for discussion, but what Ms. Agostino said, for those of you that didn't hear, was really wishing to hear, I think we could say wishing to hear from the, mentioning that Mr. Daly had said, but okay, hearing from the chiefs of those departments. So I will now open the matter up for discussion. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Deborah Felton, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2. I ask that Article 8 be removed from the consent agenda because I believe that we should hear from the fire department chief and the police chief. Both departments are integral parts of our town. I was surprised to read in the comment by the Warrant Committee that the fire department would require an additional 24 firefighters in order to meet national standards. I understand that this request and the standards are aspirational. However, it creates the impression that this increase in staffing will happen sometime in the future. Madam Moderator, I would like to know whether the town intends to add 24 firefighters, at what point, and if so, how is that going to be accomplished? I want to say that I am grateful for the Milton Fire Department and Police Department that for 18 years I worked very closely with and saw them sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a day. Madam Moderator, could we also hear from Chief King as to whether the Milton Police Department is fully staffed to address the needs of present-day policing? Thank you.
Thank you. If Chief King, who I see up there, is available to speak.
John King from the Police Department, the Police Chief. Our budget is basically a 2.5% increase over the prior year. In terms of the salary and wages, we're pretty much level. we're level on the sworn side. On the civilian side, that adds one IT position. That's basically a long overdue position I've advocated for the last few years. And it's really a common sense position. We had a technology person in the police department. We lost him years ago. That was never restored. And in that same period of time, technology's just become more important in all our lives. It's more important in the police department, from equipment upgrades, software systems, cameras, investigations, communications equipment for emergencies. So basically our budget on the salary wage side restores that one position, that's it. On the new equipment and general side, it's level funded. That, as all you know from your personal lives, the only issue with that is due to inflation. That's purchasing power of that level funding is being reduced. Behind the scenes, the police department is, there's a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes nobody sees, and I don't want to say nobody cares about, but they're just the day-to-day things, human resources, training, processes, license to carry, facilities upgrades. In the past year, we've upgraded our emergency operations center, our evidence room, our interview rooms. We've conducted evidence audits, things like that. It's not the stuff people really care about. They care more about the operational stuff. On the operational stuff, we do a lot of the traditional things people expect, a lot of minor things, traffic, disturbance calls, medical calls. We have traditional thefts, some in the houses, cars, things like that. We do a lot of community policing, crime prevention stuff. We have a small unit of community service officers, our SROs in the schools, elder affairs, working with the council on aging, things like that. We deal with our occasional violent crimes and stuff like that. The trends, really three of them, I feel. Mental health issues, persons in crisis. Sadly, that's really been a hot button issue for the last several years, and it just continues to escalate. A lot of those calls are reoccurring calls. A lot of those calls are violent calls, and a lot of these people lack resources after the police are involved. We're dealing with that in a lot of houses. We're dealing with that, in the schools, working with them. Milton Hospital, they're really overwhelmed. Kearney closed, Quincy closed, Norwood closed. They're inundated with calls. We're there regularly, an enormous amount of times. Their nurses are being assaulted in the emergency rooms, things like that. So we're dealing with that because it's not just Milton people going there, it's all the surrounding communities are going there. Technology, that's a huge issue in crimes, and it's just become kind of the norm in every crime. And sometimes it's the crimes you don't think about. There's obviously financial crimes, cyber crimes, things like that. More people are losing money online or having their identity stolen and suffering bigger losses than the old days of people, when I was a young officer and people were breaking into houses and stealing their cars and stuff like that. But we're also seeing that trend into issues with students, sexting, bullying, stuff like that. We're seeing it in domestic violence, people stalking and harassing each other using technology in those ways. So that's a trend. That's probably the second issue, and really the third biggest trend, I wouldn't say it's a trend because this is the steady one, is domestic violence. That's just a reoccurring, probably our most common arrest for a violent offense. We've had some very serious domestics in the past year. We had a woman killed in a stab-in. We had another woman shot 6 times. And those are the ones you read about in the paper. We go every day to a domestic, and a lot of people don't realize that. So those are kind of the trends. In terms of department needs, more direct to your question, we're staffed. I mean, we're level funded. We have 4 current vacancies, but we're working to fill those and get officers into the academy. We've been working on that actively, and they'll probably be going into the summer. But we're always, as people come, people retire. You have people out on maternity leaves, family medical leaves. So you're always running short, so to speak. An ideal wish list would probably be, a couple more officers and maybe at least a part-time civilian. And I'd say the dire needs would be if we could add a detective to specialize solely in these cyber investigations, the fraud, the financial scams, the identity thefts. All our detectives are trained in it, but that's become to the point where you need one person dedicated to it full time. So that would be, ideally 1 sworn officer and a 2nd sworn officer. We have a small community service office. I created that when I first became chief. I think it's a critical unit. They work on these mental health calls. We have a mental health clinician in that unit. We have a civilian domestic violence advocate in the unit. We worked extensively to get grants from the state to fund those positions and get people in the building at no cost to the town. They work on all the substance use disorders with the Milton Coalition and Milton Health Department and groups like that. They do a lot of community service and outreach. They do neighborhood problems like traffic and stuff like that. Due to staffing, they're pretty much only staffed during the daytime. So in a perfect world, a second person could add like an evening shift person doing those same things. And then, our mental health clinician, she's overwhelmed, and that's a civilian job, but ideally, even if we got somebody part-time to do like 20 hours a week at night, that would be a huge asset. So, we're level funded in the sense I'm a realist, I'm kind of conservative, but, ideally, perfect world, 2 more officers and maybe a 20-hour civilian could address some of those critical needs.
Thank you, Chief King. And I believe that Ms. Felton also asked for Chief Madden, who I see. Chief Madden, if you're able to address Ms. Felton's concerns. Thank you. Questions, excuse me. Thank you.
Good evening, Chris Madden, Fire Chief. So just a quick, brief overview of the fire department. We're busier than ever. We've become an all hazards rescue department rather than just a fire department. We handle everything, you name it, from motor vehicle accidents to hazardous material responses to water rescues to ice rescues to animal rescues. The firefighters do an amazing job at what they do. We've been level serviced for about 20 years. The last time we had any kind of change to our staffing was taking one firefighter and promoting them to a lieutenant position, which then became the fire prevention officer. Obviously, you know, with all the buildings, we work closely with the building department. Every building, every permit that gets pulled has to be inspected by the fire prevention. So busier than ever on that side. So when you talk about the 24 firefighters, obviously brought to light by the horrific fire in Fall River, that really brought to light the staffing of the firefighters, of the fire department. The NFPA, which sets the standards nationwide for just about everything that we do, the width of the street, where the smoke detectors are supposed to be, the pull stations are supposed to be, to the staffing on the fire trucks. The NFPA states that you should have 4 firefighters per apparatus, 4 on the engine, 4 on the ladder. Milton has, when we're fully staffed, we have 14 firefighters on 3 groups, 13 firefighters on 1 group. So when we're fully staffed, we can get to 3 firefighters on everything, and then 4 firefighters on engine 1. When we're minimum staffed, which is most of the time, is we have 3 firefighters on each engine and 1 firefighter on the ladder truck. So we're significantly lacking on firefighters in the ladder truck. Since I've been chief, that's all I can control. I've requested 5 firefighters for the last couple of years to boost our minimum staffing up to 12, which would put 3 firefighters on each engine and 2 firefighters on the ladder truck. That's what we're looking for. Those are the priorities that we would, for staffing. We're also looking for, I think in 2016, we were approved for a new lieutenant position that would help out with training in fire prevention. That's just never been funded. That's always been blank, level $0 in our budget since 2016. And then the other position that we've requested was an assistant chief. The operational side, we are lacking with obviously the lack of firefighters on the ladder truck. And then the administration side. Lieutenant Metaliano, he does an amazing job. He's doing almost 800, 900 inspections a year. You look at these buildings that are going in, 40B, you know, in East Milton. He has to test every device. He has to make sure that the plans are there. So we are busier than ever. I'll give credit to the men and women of the fire department. They do an amazing job. Our service, fire service, has always been do more with less, And, you know, it's getting critical with the one person in the ladder truck. And we've worked with the town administrator to try and find those ways to fund that. And it's just, we haven't been able to really kind of get there on that. So I hope I answered your question. Any other questions? Be glad to answer.
Thank you, Chief Madden. And then I see a question, thank you. And I see two people waiting over here. Ma'am, you're recognized, and then we'll go to your sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and thank you to Chief King and Chief Madden for that helpful context. Jill Clark, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 4. I have a question about the way the information is presented in the warrant, and then may have a follow-up as well. Reading through Articles 5, 6, and 7, my understanding is that Article 5, that all of those are relative to the staff that are presented in Article 8, but presented separately in different articles. Is that correct?
Mr. Milano.
Yes, so the salary amounts in the actual departmental articles reflect the actual needs of the department to fund employees that are funded at old salary rates. So once we get new collective bargaining agreements, those budgets will be updated to reflect the new rates, and that the funding for those new rates is included within Article 5, as you referenced.
Okay, that's for town side, and so the corresponding numbers for the school side is included in the school budget. Did I get that right? Okay. So I guess my question is then, I can look at, there's a lovely chart on page 90 something that clearly shows the increase in the school budget year over year is 3.76%, but there's not really a comparable number in the warrant that would tell me what the increase is year over year for public safety because of the way that it's split across different articles. And so my question is, would it be possible to get that percent increase, 26 to 27 for public safety? Does that make sense?
Mr. Milano or Mr. Daly, if that's something that can be addressed. It's the select board's warrant, so if either one of you are able to answer that question. Thank you, Mr. Milano.
Without including the collective bargaining, because that's an unknown, and so right now that still is a zero. Obviously, there will be a factor. The percent increase for public safety alone, you can take that just by looking at the public safety total at the bottom of Article 8. So 17,543 against 17,254 in the prior year. I can do that quickly, but overall across all the town departments, the town departments as a total were at a 3.99% year over year increase. I know in this case, fire went slightly down on a total. As you see, last year was 6,941,779. This year it's 6,920,242. Police was up by a little bit, but I can give you that total if you give us a couple minutes.
Thank you. Yes, sir, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Jeff Stone, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. This is a question I'd like to hear from Chief Madden about. I think it was just yesterday there was a big fire in the Blue Hills, and it was reported that departments from Milton and many surrounding communities pitched in Norfolk County to help contain and put out that fire. So that leads me to ask a two-part question. Are other adjacent nearby towns going through this less than optimal, less than NFPA recommended staffing levels? Are they all below where they'd like to be? And the second thing is, with our cooperative, I forget what you call it, but the cooperative arrangements we have with other towns when we're in need, let's say we have 2 or 3 fires or one big fire in Milton and we have need for assistance from other departments, does that arrangement that we have with nearby communities help alleviate the less than desirable staffing levels that we and the other departments have. So does that help us to cope when we are really deluged with some big needs in town by having the nearby departments come and help?
Thank you. Mr. Madden.
Sure. So other cities and towns, the cities and towns that I know of that abide by the NFPA 4 firefighters per apparatus would be Boston, Brookline. Weymouth has 4 per engine, and I believe Fall River now are the ones in the Commonwealth that are the ones that have 4 firefighters per apparatus. Most cities and towns have 3 on the engine and 2 or 3 on the ladder trucks around us. Some cities and towns run the ambulance, which then augments their fire departments with their firefighters on their apparatus. So that's, without going into it, obviously Boston has plenty of people. And then what you're talking about is a mutual aid agreement. So the mutual aid agreement is important, whenever we have a big incident or multiple incidents, we can call our neighbors and they'll send help. Whatever we're looking for, we'll send help. They'll send help or we'll send help. It's just the nature of the fire service, and we always do that. And it's just a way to augment each department. There's no way that Milton could handle a 6-story building, or even a 3-story building. We need the help. So even Boston needs help, right? Boston goes to 3, 4, 5, 6 alarms. City of Lowell went to 5 alarms yesterday. So it's all mutual aid that happens.
So if I may, so does that help alleviate the underfunding that we have, or the less than desirable staffing? Is that a way that we cope with this?
It does help, absolutely. But when you look at, some of the bigger incidents in the state, you're required to, you need mutual aid. Just Boston's probably the only one that could handle, I think Boston goes 8 alarms on their own people without calling in any other cities and towns. They'll call in other cities and towns to cover the firehouses, but, so it does help out. On our first alarm assignment, if we have a working fire, that's all 3 engines, deputy chief and the ladder truck to the scene. If we go to a second alarm, you're looking at Randolph, Canton, and Quincy coming to us, augment the department.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. We'll go over here and then we'll come back to Ms. Agostino. Ms. Oldfield, did you want to be heard? Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Maggie Oldfield, Precinct 5. I'm wondering if there's a way that the town can charge impact fees to the developers to help offset the costs of our fire and our police. Because clearly these developments are draining some of our resources. And also, how much does BI Milton contribute to pilot? And should they be contributing more to cover the costs of the police personnel that's needed up at the hospital? Thanks.
Chief Madden, if you can answer the second question at least about Beth Israel Milton and their impact. And then, or we can go to Mr. Milano for the impact fee, and then the third question as well.
So on the developer impact mitigation fee, I don't know that I've seen an impact fee that goes directly to supporting an operating budget. Obviously, a development will pay property taxes and get hit for new growth in their first year, so there will be a payment to the town. And we would certainly not want to rely on a one-time payment to fund ongoing costs. So I think, there are direct mitigation that we would seek out of projects. That is, the other problem is I think court decisions have ruled that it's tricky you have to have a really clear direct connection between what the fee is for and what you're charging. So, we do get payments through development projects, through conditions put in by the Board of Appeals or by the Planning Board. But in order to support ongoing operational expenses, we would certainly want that to be recurring, so it's just not a one-time contribution of money. BI Milton currently does not pay any pilot payments, so BI Milton does not give the town any payments in lieu of taxes, and that's what we mean by pilot. Milton Academy and Curry College both provide pilot payments to the town. BI Milton does not. And in fairness to them, they do have a medical office building, which is taxable in portions. So there is some tax payments, but certainly not the amount that would be if it were fully taxable.
Thank you, Mr. Milano. And Ms. Agostino, I see that you're also waiting to speak on this article. Okay, go ahead.
Diane DiTullio, Agostino, Precinct 9. And I'd like to begin by pointing out that last year we also removed the public safety article from the consent, and I would request that in future years, it's so important for us to hear every year to give the opportunity for the fire chief and the police chief to make their statement. You know, they keep it to under 5 minutes. You know, the select board generally does recognize them, so I would ask that you please consider to make it a standard that public safety would not be part of the overall consent. And then it was just brought to my attention, and it might be a point of order that the town clerk would definitely need when she creates the report. When the individual asked about how Article 6, what would she say, Article 5, 6, and 7 become the financials. So am I missing, who submitted Article 7? It doesn't state who submitted Article 7, and the annual report would have to show that.
Is that something that the select board, being their warrant, either Mr. Daly or Mr. Milano, can answer Ms. Agostino's question regarding the submitting body of Article 7? Thank you, Mr. Daly.
Winston Daly, Town Meeting Member Precinct 2, Chair of the Select Board. That was just an oversight. This was submitted by the Select Board, just a typo, something that we will correct going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up question, Ms. Agostino?
So, as I noted, for the town report to identify it, how would we correct that? Because the town report prints what's voted, and it wasn't noted, and it is an oversight. Just think it's important to mention it was the select board that submitted it, not
Thank
the
you.
personnel board.
So the question was, Ms. Agostino, if one were to rectify that problem, I don't know if town council wants to address that or if the select board wants to address that generally.
As far as could you just repeat the question as far as, were you saying how should it be noted in the annual report? Is that what I heard you say?
If everybody can't hear Ms. Agostino, what she said was that concern is that it's not, and if I mis-summarize you, please let me know, but that due to the fact that, as Mr. Daly mentioned, it does not state the submitting body, if that were to be rectified, how would that be rectified? If that's correct. Thank you. She gave me the thumbs up, so go ahead.
I mean, ultimately, I would defer to the moderator as the final decision on all questions of order, but it was a ministerial error. It was very good point that it was brought up, and I think it was clarified by the chair of the select board. So in my opinion, that's enough. It doesn't invalidate the vote in any way. But obviously the moderator makes those decisions, but in my opinion, the vote was still valid.
Thank you. Are there any other questions regarding Article 8? Or comments about Article 8? Okay, I see none. So we will now proceed to a vote on Article 8. This is a majority vote. Let me just turn my page here. The motion before the body on the floor is the recommendation of the warrant committee, which is that the town appropriate the amount shown in the following tabulation under the heading recommended FY 27 as set forth in the warrant, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $5,000 be transferred from the dog licenses surcharge account received pursuant to Chapter 187 of the Acts of 1981 for leash law enforcement, the sum of $50,000 to be appropriated from funds certified by the Department of Revenue as free cash, and that $17,488,413 be raised from the tax levy. This is a majority vote, and we will open the vote. Yes is A, as always, B is no, and C is abstain, or don't click anything. And you have the remaining 38 seconds to vote. $211 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstain. The article passes. Articles 9 and 10 were passed pursuant to the consent agenda, and we will move to Article 11, which is Public Works Appropriation, and you can find on page 37, I believe, of your warrant. Article 11 provides to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 2026 for the operation, maintenance, and improvement of public works, and further to authorize the Public Works Department to sell at a private or public sale with the approval of the Select Board equipment that is no longer needed by the Department of Public Works, and or to exchange or trade in old equipment for similar materials in the usual course of its operations, to provide replacement items, and to act on anything related thereto. This was submitted by the Select Board. Would the Select Board wish to speak on this article, Mr. Daly? No. And Mr. Fundling, would the Warrant Committee like to speak on this article? No. Mr. Walker, you had earlier requested that I don't know if you want to remake your request, but that the chair of the Department of Public Works, I believe, speak to the, why don't you repeat, if you don't mind, Mr. Walker?
Leroy Walker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. The request was for a detailed report on road maintenance and repair, what the plan is for the next 3 to 5 years with specificity about streets, roads, cost, and so forth. I realize it was short notice, so we could move that to tomorrow night if necessary, but I would like to hear that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I've been advised that we don't have the appropriate person to hear from on the, oh, yeah. Yes, Mr. Milano, we do. Yes. Oh, Ms. Fernandez, I see you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Marina Fernandez, the outgoing DPW Director. We did publish in the Town of Milton website. I invite everyone to go to the Town of Milton website under the Department of Public Works, under Engineering Department. All of our ongoing construction has been posted. We do a tremendous job trying to update everything. We believe that providing that information to the public in a very concise and clear manner, so everybody's getting the information in the same way, it will help for folks to understand what's going on. In regards to the roadways that are slated, please note, once you go through this, you will understand what the contractor is, what the schedule is, what roads there are. There are always changes, so please be aware of those changes, weather patterns, as well as funding, or even technical specifications like corings could, give us, or when we coordinate with other utilities, sometimes it makes us change how we are posting it, but we are always updating it. But this really gives you a good roadmap as to what is ahead. It also provides you information with the different tools that we will be using. We don't just go ahead and provide the same level of treatment for every road. Everything is very tailored for what we have on the road. We did provide a very detailed presentation to the select board, and I invite folks to check that out. I believe it is published. And if there are any questions, please email our department, and we can always respond more technical questions if needed.
Thank you, Ms. Fernandez. I see another question here. Ms. Tagayas, you're recognized.
Cheryl Tagayas, Precinct 9. Could you also speak to your plan for improvements to sidewalks, to bike lanes, and also what the status is of our Complete Streets program and grant funding that's available through that program? Thank you.
So the sidewalk improvements are in tandem with our roadway pavement program. We do benefit from Chapter 90 funding, which requires us to make the roadways and along with the sidewalks ADA compliant. Once we pave a road from curb to curb, at least one side of the sidewalk has to be ADA compliant. Therefore, we go in and we do wheelchair ramps, everything, and sidewalks. As for the Complete Street Program funding, there was a bit of a pause for the town of Milton eligibility for that program because we were not MBTA compliant. Fortunately, for receiving those funds, we are MBTA compliant, and we have very quickly submitted an application. I believe we were supposed to hear from Mass DOT on the response to an ongoing application. The application that we submitted was for roadway improvements along Brook Road from Center Street to Otis. And we would be looking at that roadway and how to improve it for multimodal transportation. We have completed some projects in the past, Phase 1 and Phase 2, on the Complete Street program, and that completed projects along Brook Reedsdale and Central intersection for new ADA compliant sidewalks and traffic equipment.
Thank you. We'll go here, over there, and then back to Ms. Cronin. Ms. Cronin, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Marita Manning Cronin, Precinct 4 and 4A. The previous speaker spoke about Chapter 90, and I was just wondering, we used to have a separate article for Chapter 90, and the streets were listed. Didn't know what kind of money we received this year for Chapter 90, and what streets were going to be surfaced under that. Thank
you. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it is $1.2 million, I believe, that we received. That money has increased over the years due to the fair share program. It used to be $926,000 when I started here as a town engineer about 5 years ago, and it has increased to close to 1.2 million. I did see historically, that is previous to me starting, that the roads were listed. And again, due to the fact that we are always tailoring the roads approach. Sometimes we have had issues with trying to get the contractors out here because some treatments require to be done at a certain specific time of the year. We did trend away from listing those roads in order to get the work done and completed as much as we could with the year, and not tying in that money to that specific road if that road had to be moved to the following year. That is my understanding as to how we stayed away from listing those streets.
Thank you, Ms. Fernandez. We'll go here and then over there. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Brian Kelly, Precinct 7. Something came out recently. We were all out campaigning, and a lot of people stand on the deck in East Milton and hold signs. You get a long enough time to take a look at what's going on. The walkways in the new deck are all crumbling. It absolutely amazes me that this is such a new redo that it's not lasting. Now, I don't know if it's because of the quality of the workmanship that the state provided, or if it's the maintenance from our DPW putting salt or corrosive materials on the concrete that maybe should have been treated with a different type of treatment. So I don't know where the issue stems from, but there are issues over there. If you stand across from the East Milton, the current East Milton Fire Station, that's the corner I was on, and if you look south, the crosswalk is wavy. And then you'll notice that the whole pavement is starting to like, it's moving. So it could be some serious things going on there. I don't know who's gonna have to talk to the state about it and investigate it, but it's something that came to mind. I took some pictures. I'll be happy to bring them tomorrow night if you wanna show them to the town meeting members, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. Fernandez, did you wish to speak to that? And then we'll go over here.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. We did flag that. We've been working with Mass DOT for over a year. The specifications, my understanding is the specifications in the concrete made for that era. Concrete is very finicky. It can start flaking. That was identified. Mass DOT understands that issue. We had a walk with Mass DOT. We selected the panels, and we are waiting. Just the scheduling of those panels will be replaced. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go over here.
Hi, Bill White, Precinct 6 Town Meeting Member. I just wanted to make a plug. We have been working with Ms. Fernandez in our neighborhood, and we had about 70% of the residents come to the Traffic Commission to talk about traffic calming measures. I see you got a study that's coming forward in it, but I would just urge, it's not just an issue for our neighborhood, but you know, many neighborhoods in the town are subject to cut-through traffic, and I just think what the town did on Governor's Road was an excellent example of speed humps that slow traffic. It doesn't minimize the traffic, so we still have that, but at least it's safer, particularly as the kids are traveling to school in the morning. So I would just urge the select board and the other town departments to think about speed humps. I know Chief Madden probably is not going to like them, but you know, many other towns are accommodating speed humps that lower traffic and increase safety. And I would urge the town and the DPW yard to think about doing what you did on Governor's Road, which I walk it almost every day. The average speed down there is now between 12 and 15 miles an hour because there's an indicator. On our street on Plymouth Ave, as they cut through and they race through in the morning, because the apps tell them that they can save 30 seconds, they are at 25 miles an hour and it's and above, and it's just not safe. So please keep that in mind and maybe pass that on to your predecessor. Congratulations on your new job.
Thank you, Mr. White.
I don't want to, thank you, Ms. Moderator. I don't want to interrupt the questions, and I might be interrupting them. But since this is
near the end of.
Sorry, you just have to say your
Sean
name. I
Fahey-
know who you are. but-
Sean
Sorry,
Fahey,
go ahead.
Precinct 9, town meeting member, and also a member of the planning board. And I just thought it was appropriate, since Director Fernandez is near the end of her time here in Milton, that we express our gratitude to her for her service here in the town and wish her well in her career going forward.
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Fahey, and thank you, Ms. Fernandez. Thank you, Mr. Fahey. I see no additional people wishing to speak on this article. Therefore, we will move to a vote on Article 11. Again, the motion on the floor is the recommendation of the warrant committee, which is that the town appropriate the amount shown in the following tabulation under the heading recommended FY 27 as set forth in the warrant, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $6,495,834 be raised from the tax levy. The Public Works Department is hereby authorized to sell at a private or public sale with the approval of the select board equipment that is no longer needed by the department. It is further authorized to exchange or trade in old equipment for similar materials in the usual course of its operations to provide replacement items. This is a majority vote. And it passes 200 yes, no no's, and no abstains. Articles 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 were passed by consent. Now, it is 10, I was getting to that. It is 10:50. May I hear a motion? We had motion to adjourn second. All in favor? All opposed? See you tomorrow here, 7:30 on the dot at the high school. Thank you all so much. The meeting is adjourned.